Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our beautiful new Corte Madera Town Hall. We will start tonight with a call to order and a roll call.
Councilmember Andrews.
Present.
Okay. Councilmember Beckman is absent from this meeting. Councilmember Casissa.
Here.
Vice Mayor Thomas.
Here.
Mayor Ravazio.
Here. And if you could all join us in a salute to the flag. With liberty and justice. So tonight is a special meeting to consider the appeal application PL 250024, requesting a reversal of the Planning Commission's approval of design review application PL 240059 for the demolition of an existing two-story office building and the construction of a six-story residential development with 99 multifamily units at 240 Tamil Vista Boulevard. The Planning Commission approved the application by a 3-2 vote. A resident of Green Bay has filed an appeal of that decision, and tonight's hearing will proceed according to Council Rule 6.7. Here's how the meeting's going to go tonight, just to make sure everybody's aware of the process. At first, our planning staff will present a report where she's going to tell you sort of how we got here and where we are and what our options are. And then we will hear from the appellant, the individual making the appeal. They will have 10 minutes to make their presentation. And then we will hear from the applicant, the developer who wants to build the property, the project, and that will also be 10 minutes. At that point, the council will have an opportunity to ask questions of either the staff, the applicant, or the appellant, and then we will take public comment. So the public comment kind of comes towards the end, but by that time, hopefully we'll all be a little bit more informed about what we want to say and what we can contribute. At that point, both the applicant and the appellant will each have 5 minutes to respond, and then it will come back to the council. We'll discuss and deliberate and take whatever action the council deems is appropriate. First, on the advent of Council Member Eli Beckman's recusal tonight, I'm going to call on the town attorney to give us an explanation for that.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Amy Ackerman, Town Attorney. I want to inform you that we received an advisory opinion from the Fair Political Practices Commission, the FPPC, that Council Member Beckman had a potential conflict of interest that prohibits him from participating in any discussions or deliberations related to the proposed development because he leases an apartment that is located within 500 feet of the proposed development. As a result, he has recused himself from participating in tonight's hearing. Now, there are only 4 council members present, but any action by council will still require a vote of the majority of the members of the council, the 5 seats. So if council does not have a majority vote to grant the appeal, that is 3 votes, the action of the Planning Commission will stand.
Okay, next up is an opportunity and a requirement for anyone on the council to disclose any ex parte, meaning sort of off-the-record communications or meetings with either the applicant or the appellant. So looking to Fred, yes?
Yeah, excuse me. I had a meeting with the developers on January 21st. That was also, staff was present at that meeting and was for informational purposes only.
Rosa.
I also had a meeting on January 21st for informational purposes only with staff present.
And James.
I had no ex parte meetings.
And I was also invited to a staff meeting where by Zoom, the developer gave a brief presentation of the project. So I think that completes our obligation there, correct? Okay, up next, staff presentation, just in case any of you haven't put names to faces yet. Adam Wolf is our town manager. He's where the buck stops. And Amy Lyle is our Community Development Director, and Martha Battaglia is our Senior Planner. And those two are sort of where the rubber hits the road and they do all the work. So not that Adam doesn't do a lot of the work too. So Amy and Martha, I think, are going to give the staff report tonight. Okay, Adam, do you want to start or just go with Amy and, okay, Amy and Martha, it's all yours.
All right. Good evening, Mayor Ravazio and members of the council. I'll be starting off this presentation. So Martha and I will be going back and forth. We're going to try to be as concise as possible, but we do want to provide as much information as we can and also go through the appeal in advance of the conversation with the community. So this is an appeal hearing for the 240 Tamil Vista Development Project, multifamily workforce housing project. The town council will be evaluating the appeal itself and the findings made by the planning commission. So just in short, this isn't opening up the whole project for review. This is really your review of the planning commission's decision and the findings that are required for the approval of the project. So we do expect a lot of public comment. So again, we're going to be as short as possible. We do have some other professionals here with us. We have Ruben Martin, who's the fire chief of Central Marin Police. And we also have a representative from Public Works available if there's any questions related to traffic. And then we do have the environmental consultant that helped us prepare the environmental work. Terry Whistler-Adams and Shoshana Lutz are both available via Zoom to answer any questions. Next slide, please. So an appeal was filed on May 2nd by Julie J. of Green Bay. The appeal was filed on behalf of 91 neighbors residing in Corte Madera, Larkspur, Green Bay, and Mill Valley. So the appeal is included as attachment 2 to your staff report, and it does list several factors and that will require your consideration. So Martha will be going over all of those in detail later in the presentation. Next slide, please. So at this point, we do just want to go over some of the elements that we're dealing with related to state law and really the landscape that we have related to housing and the review of housing projects. So the Senate Bill 330, known as the Housing Crisis Act of 2019, became effective in 2020. This is the first SB 330 project that we've had here in town at Corte Madera. It is becoming very common in the state. This was when it first was adopted, it was supposed to sunset this year, and it subsequently was extended until 2030. But this bill applies to residential developments and mixed-use projects where 2/3 of the square footage is residential. The law is really designed to address the housing crisis by streamlining approval and by locking in fees and really creating certainty for the development community. And for instance, the SB 330 does limit the number of public meetings that we are able to have. So it limits the number of meetings to 5, and that includes any workshops or any meetings with the community involved. So for that reason, it's really important that the council takes an action tonight. This will be the 4th meeting, and we do have a reserved meeting for the approval of the grading permit, which is required under our code. So we'll be talking about the other 4 meetings that have occurred up to this point. Next slide, please. So the other area of law that the applicant is taking advantage of is state density bonus law. And this really creates incentives and encourages development of affordable and senior housing. A developer who meets the requirements of this law is entitled to receive a density bonus and other benefits as a matter of right, so with little discretion. And because of those little areas of discretion, this puts a huge reliance on our policies. So our objective design standards, our housing element, and the sites that are zoned for housing. So this law allows increased density for projects that provide affordable housing. So this project being 100% affordable does qualify for an 80% increase in density. So this density bonus law also includes other tools, including the ability to get incentives around concessions and development standard waivers. And those are in place to help make the development of affordable housing and senior housing feasible. So the failure of the town to approve a project that is taking advantage of these laws would be considered an improper disapproval under the Housing Accountability Act, which has some severe consequences. So we will talk about that later in the presentation as well. Next slide, please. So this particular project is requesting a variety of waivers and concessions. There's no limit on the number of waivers that can be requested. And so the applicant is requesting a reduction based on if the inability to develop the project at the permitted density. And there are, let's see, 6 development waivers that are being requested. And they've also requested 1 concession for the reduction in EV parking. So the applicant has provided justification for all these components, and there is not something the town can usually negotiate on these areas. So we're required to process the application as it's submitted. Next slide, please. Thanks, Lorena, sorry. All right, shifting to our local policy, we want to talk about our housing element process, and just reminding the council and the community of the housing element that was adopted just a couple years ago in 2013. I'm sorry, 2023. Not that long ago. So this planning effort was really based on a lot of robust outreach. The town actually won an award based on the outreach that was done from a state American Planning Association. And there was a lot of data involved in the housing element. If those of you look at this up on our website, you'll see it is a very dense document. It does have a lot of supplemental information around existing housing and the planning for housing for the future. So one of the more significant areas of the housing element is the housing site inventory. And this requires the town to identify specific locations for housing, which are on the screen here. And really, we had to ensure that we had sites that were zoned at sufficient densities to meet all the income criteria under our regional housing needs allocation. So one thing that we've heard about this project is that there have been issues around the location. And this is one of the 10 sites that are identified in our housing element. And all of these sites were rezoned to allow for greater densities as part of that process and the outreach. And the location of this project is really an expression of the housing policy that was adopted just a few years ago. So the sites are primarily located along the 101 corridor, away from high fire areas and almost all of the town's single-family neighborhoods. So this project is really implementing what was adopted and is taking advantage of state law to really streamline the approval process, which makes the project feasible to build. A denial of this particular housing site would jeopardize all of our housing sites and may result in the state decertifying our housing element. And that would leave us subject to other areas of state law, including the builder's remedy, which I'm sure you all have heard about, where a project can be applied for that is not consistent with our local zoning, and we would be forced to process that application. So sticking with our housing element policy and the particular sites that are rezoned really give us the best opportunity to be able to condition the project as required under our zoning and as was envisioned in the housing element. Next slide, please. So another area of the housing element is the number of units that we had to plan for. So the town's RENA allocation for the current housing cycle is 725 units, which is shown on this slide. And it's divided into different income categories. So we actually have to show that we have planned and are accomplishing housing at very low income, moderate, and above moderate. So this table also shows how this project specifically would help accomplish those housing goals if approved. So for context, I will say that on average, the town, we approve about 10 to 20 units depending on the year. So it would certainly take us a long time to get to 725 units. And if the town doesn't produce housing in accordance with these RENA numbers, it will trigger an additional state law, which is SB 35. So SB 35 creates a ministerial process for projects that have at least 20% of affordable units. And that would mean projects like this one would be approved administratively with no noticing, no hearing. And many jurisdictions are subject to SB 35. And so we do need to be mindful of being able to produce the housing units proportionally over the years of this cycle. Just one of many reasons why it's imperative to really consider what's before you tonight. Next slide, please. So we also want to highlight what it means to be affordable. This is a table that shows what rent can be charged as determined by federal and state agencies. These are very strictly regulated. So these are the 2024 maximums of what can be charged. And next slide, please. So this slide shows that the income that households could earn in a year to qualify for various income levels that the project would include. As shown on this slide, a family of 4 can make $137,000 and qualify for a low-income unit in Marin. And this is because the income categories are based on the average median income. So Marin's average median income, or AMI, is among the highest in the state. And you've recently heard a presentation from the Rooted in Marin team, and that really focused on anti-displacement, and which really looked at our population decline and found that the decline of population was really those making under 75,000. And you also heard that 64% of our workforce is coming from outside the county. And approving and building affordable housing in Corte Madera helps achieve our economic goals. It keeps people here. It achieves our climate goals. And it also provides a mix of housing. So young adults can stay in the area where if they grew up here. There's options for affordable intergenerational housing, housing for essential workers, and for families in general, knowing that we have also declining school enrollment. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Martha to talk about the specifics around the project that's before you.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Council, and members of the public. Next slide. This next section of the presentation goes over the project and also the points of the appeal. So on April 22nd, can you go back? Yeah. On April 22nd, the Planning Commission adopted a resolution approving the project at 240 Tamil Vista Boulevard. The project is approximately 226,000 square feet and includes 99 units that would be affordable to lower income families. The 6-story building is 72 feet in height and provides 163 parking spaces. The ground floor of the building includes a parking garage, 2 lobbies, a leasing office, a fitness center, a gym, amenity space, and teen room. The second floor includes a parking garage and then 4 residential units on the east elevation that faces Tamil Vista Boulevard. The third floor includes 23 units, and an amenity space and a landscape podium. And then floors 4, 5, and 6 all include 24 units. The units range in size from 1,080 square feet to just over 1,300 square feet, and they are all 3 and 4 bedroom units. And this slide shows design option B, which was the design option that was selected by the Planning Commission at the hearing. This slide shows the various development standards for the site. As Amy mentioned, as part of the housing element, 10 sites in Corte Madera were rezoned to allow greater densities. The site at 240 Tamil Vista was rezoned to allow 15.1 units to 35 units. And this results in a base density of 55 units. Since the project is 100% affordable, they qualify for an 80% bonus, which results in 99 units. As Amy mentioned, the applicant has requested a variety of waivers from development standards, one of which is the height of the building. The allowable height in this zoning district is 50 feet, and the building is 72 feet. Another waiver that was required was for the step back minimum. The zoning requires that any story above the third floor be stepped back 10 feet, and a waiver was also requested for this as well. As Amy mentioned, there is no limit on the number of waivers that can be requested or granted, and a waiver must be granted for any standard that would preclude the construction of the project at the permitted density, which in this case is 99 units. The project is located at the southwest corner of Tamil Vista Boulevard and Pfeiffer Avenue, as shown on the slide. The site has a general plan land use designation of mixed use of housing element mixed use corridor, and is within the housing element overlay district HE2 sub area. The site is 1.57 acres, and it's developed with a 2-story office building and a surface parking lot with 75 spaces. Access is currently provided from 2 driveways, one on Tamil Vista and a second on Lucky Drive. The site is in the floodplain, so any future developments required to be raised a minimum of 1 foot above base flood elevation. And the applicant is proposing to raise the building an additional 2 feet above what is required to account for anticipated sea level rise. The project site is adjacent to commercial uses. Located to the northeast across Pfeiffer Avenue is an office building and SF Fitness. Located to the east across Tamil Vista Boulevard is Joanne Fabrics. To the south is the Marin Water Corporation Yard. To the west is the Towns Corporation Yard. And then to the north and northwest across Lucky are residences, which are located in Corte Madera, Larkspur, and Greenbrae. The next slide. Vehicular access to the site is proposed from a single driveway on Tamil Vista Boulevard, and the driveway is located at the southern end of the site. The driveway location is located approximately 40 feet south of the existing driveway at the site. The driveway has a pull-out area for drop-off, loading, and move-in, and it also includes a fire emergency vehicle access area. There's also a turnaround for fire trucks and trash trucks in this area of the site. 2 pedestrian entries are proposed. The main entry is proposed at the southeastern portion of the building, and the secondary pedestrian entry is at the corner of Tamil Vista and Pfeiffer. And on this site plan, the areas shown in pink are the amenity spaces, such as the gym and the teen room and the tech room. And then the areas shown in purple are the lobbies and the leasing office. A state density bonus law also includes parking ratios. And upon a developer's request, a jurisdiction may not require more parking than what is in state density bonus law. These ratios are slightly different than the town's requirements. The town's requirements would have required 168 spaces, whereas state density bonus law requires 162 spaces. And the project provides 160. Next slide. The applicant did request a waiver for bicycle parking requirements. The requirement is 1 space per unit, so a total of 99 spaces. The spaces are required to be in a secure indoor area. And the existing or the proposed bicycle parking is 37 spaces, and it's located on the lower level. The applicant has indicated that they will continue to look for opportunities to provide additional bicycle parking as the design is further refined. This slide highlights some areas in red. These are identified as support on the lower level, and it is possible that one of these areas could be converted to an additional bicycle storage area. And at this time, it's unknown if all of these support areas will be required for mechanical and electrical equipment. The developer did meet with bicycle advocates as part of the process. They met with a representative from the town's Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee, someone from Marin Bicycle Coalition, and a member from VTB CAM. And as part of this meeting, they discussed ways to enhance and improve bicycle amenities at the site. And some of the potential options are to provide a stacker system, which would provide for additional bike storage in the existing area. And then also participating in a regional bike share program or providing property-owned bikes to tenants. Next slide. The project would remove all on-site trees. There are a total of 42 trees. The requirement for replacement is that 2 replacement trees be planted for every tree with a circumference greater than 30 inches. So of the 42 trees that will be removed, 21 have a circumference of 30 inches or more. So the replacement requirement is 42 trees. The applicant will be planting 101 new trees. This includes 88 trees on site and an additional 13 off-site trees. The majority of trees have a size of 24-inch box or larger. Consistent with the zoning requirements for the site, the project includes 10-foot wide sidewalks. This will improve pedestrian access around the project site. The sidewalks will also include street trees and tree grades. And street trees will be planted 30 feet on center. Along Tamil Vista Boulevard, 6 Swan Hill olive trees are proposed, and along Pfeiffer Avenue and Lucky Drive, 7 cork oaks are proposed. And all of the street trees are 36-inch box size. The project is required to provide 150 square feet of open space per unit. This results in a requirement of 14,850 square feet, and the project provides 15,685 square feet. This includes the amenity space on the first floor and then the amenity space and landscape podium on the third floor. And this slide is showing the landscape podium. This area includes a game lounge area, a garden area, a multi-purpose lounge with barbecues, and a lawn with a tot lot. A variety of meetings have been held. As Amy mentioned, this is the 4th meeting on the project. The first meeting was a community meeting on January 22nd, which was well attended. There's approximately 75 people attended, and it was split pretty evenly between in-person and people participating remote. 22 people provided public comments. Now, most of the comments raised concerns and objections to the project. The concerns that were raised included traffic, water, a concentration of housing sites along Tamil Vista Boulevard, the height and scale of the building, and a need for more bicycle parking and EV. And several people spoke in support of the project and stated the importance of providing workforce housing in the community. The Planning Commission held a study session on January 28th. 9 people provided comment at this meeting. Most speakers expressed concerns or objections to the project, and the concerns expressed were very similar to those at the workshop. One speaker voiced support for the project, emphasizing the community's need for more housing, and another commenter noted that the nearby Tamridge project did not produce the anticipated traffic impacts. This slide shows the comments and concerns that were raised by the Planning Commission at that meeting. And in response to concerns about the building height, the applicant developed several different alternatives to reduce the perception of the building's height and mass. And this included modifications to exterior colors and materials. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on April 22nd. This meeting was well attended. 16 people provided public comment. 11 speakers raised concerns and objections, and 5 speakers voiced support. The concerns and objections included traffic, the concentration of sites on Tamil Vista, the building height and scale, and the unit sizes, and the need for additional bicycle parking. By a 3-2 vote, the Planning Commission approved the project with the condition that the applicant revise the plans from the original design to design option B. One of the commissioners also recommended that the traffic assessment prepared by Hexagon Transportation Consultants also evaluate the impact of vehicles in and out of the site and their impact on Pfeiffer Avenue. Based on this comment, the report prepared by Hexagon Transportation Consultants was revised. That report is included as attachment 9 to your staff report. The option B is included as attachment 7 and the Planning Commission resolution as attachment. I'm now going to turn it over to Amy to discuss traffic.
Yes, just very quickly, we wanted to take an additional focus on traffic because that's been one of the major concerns. And first, I just wanted to note that in recent years, the state has really shifted the way that we review traffic. And instead of focusing on congestion, the state and CEQA ask us now to review projects based on vehicle miles traveled. So it's really looking at the length of the trips that the project will create and not the amount of congestion that will occur. So that does limit us in what we can do in terms of the project. There's no doubt that there's existing congestion. We all experience that. And this project will add additional cars. However, based on the review required by the state, we can't ask the project to mitigate these impacts related to congestion. So also the state guidance that has been coming out really suggests that building housing in this way close to transit, close to schools and shopping actually decreases congestion and decreases vehicle miles traveled. So this project didn't trigger the threshold to be able to do a full-fledged traffic study under CEQA. However, there are some things that we did do in response to community concern. So for instance, separate and aside from this project, the town paid for a traffic analysis done by parametrics to review existing conditions and evaluate if there's anything from the town perspective that we could do to alleviate the congestion in these areas. And as part of their review, they did identify several bike and pedestrian improvements in the vicinity and widening of sidewalks. And we are evaluating these for future areas of our capital improvement planning and what we can accomplish. So really, when you're not looking at congestion anymore, that really shifts our thinking about traffic into more bike and pedestrian improvements. So hoping to kind of shift the mode from the automobile to these other options. Next slide, please. So with the traffic analysis, as Martha mentioned, we did ask for further review beyond what's required under CEQA. So there was a review of congestion as part of the original EIR for the housing element, and this project the site was reviewed as part of that. But beyond that, we did have Hexagon Transportation Consultants conduct a site plan review of the proposed project, and we asked them to really focus on the site itself and the on-site circulation to determine if the site layout was adequate. So really looking at the entrance, whether or not there should be a restricted left turn, and if it was safe in general. So Hexagon identified several recommendations that are shown on this slide. These have been discussed with the applicant and have been incorporated as conditions of approval. And with that, I'll turn it back to Martha.
Next slide. So fairly recently, the town did a traffic study for the Tam Ridge project, which is now known as Belmont Tam. And this looked at if the actual traffic from the project matched what was assumed as it was going through the entitlement process. So I think everyone in the room is probably familiar with Belmont Tam, but it's located at 195 Tamil Vista, and it's 180 units. So once this project was fully occupied, the town hired Parisi Transportation Consultants to assess the actual vehicle trip generated from the project compared to what was assumed. They also looked at the impact of these trips on local intersections and the delay that they caused. So the key findings of this report was that the project's impact on traffic at Tamil Vista between Warnham Drive, the Warnham Drive intersection was minimal. The project contributes approximately 3.5% of the intersection's traffic during the AM peak, which is from 7:30 a.m. to 8:30 a.m. And it contributes approximately 2.4% of the traffic volume during the PM peak, which is from 4:30 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. Next slide. So the California Environmental Quality Act requires that certain projects be reviewed for environmental impacts and that environmental documents be prepared to analyze these impacts. So the town consulted with EMC Planning Group to provide an environmental analysis of this project. And the town prepared an initial study to evaluate any new impacts resulting from the change in the project to what was assumed in the housing element subsequent EIR. The housing element subsequent EIR was certified by the town council in January 2023, and it assumed 58 units and just under 14,500 square feet of commercial. And the project, obviously, before you this evening, is for 99 units and 0 square feet of commercial. So the planning division determined that an additional subsequent EIR was not required for this particular project and prepared an addendum. The addendum is included as Exhibit A to the resolution, and the mitigation and monitoring reporting program is included as Exhibit B. The mitigation monitoring reporting program includes various mitigation measures that the applicant will be required to comply with. Next slide. So these next slide include a summary of the points of the appeal. As Amy mentioned, a timely appeal was filed by the appellant, Julie J., on May 2nd, representing 91 neighbors in the vicinity. This appeal is attachment 2 to your report. On these next several slides, lists the 8 points of the appeal and also the town's response. And I'm going to go over these point by point so that it's in the record this evening and also for the benefit of everyone in the room. I'm sure that Julie will elaborate on these as part of her presentation. So the first point was that the appellant does not think that the traffic impact study done by Hexagon Transportation Consultants for the development is adequate and that further study is required. It notes that the existing intersection is severely impacted, especially during rush hour and when Redwood High School lets out. In response, congestion, as discussed by Amy, is a pre-existing condition in this location, and it's largely contributed by high school traffic to Redwood High. The town is required to evaluate transportation impacts in terms of the impact on vehicle miles traveled, or VMT, and not on congestion, which is known as level of service. Also, as Amy mentioned, affordable housing projects, per state guidance, a decrease of vehicle miles traveled, and there is no impact the project will have on any CEQA impacts on vehicle miles traveled. And CEQA nor any state law requires the study of traffic congestion, and the town cannot require any further study. Next slide. The second point of the appeal was that nearby residents who live very close to the development, but just outside the 500 feet, were not noticed of the project. In response, the town's municipal code requires that the town send mailed notices to residents within 300 feet of a project site. For this project, the town expanded that to a 500-foot radius, and the town also promoted the project through a variety of other ways, which included installing a large project sign at the site, using A-frame signs in the vicinity of the site, including information on the town's website and newsletter and on social media, and also sending information to the interested parties list. Next slide. The third and fourth points of appeal are somewhat similar. The first, point 3, is that the appellants are concerned about emergency vehicle access, especially during hours when police, fire, and ambulance vehicles will be stuck in gridlock. And point 4, the appellant is concerned that further evaluation of evacuation routes during natural disasters is required. In response to these 2 points, this site is located approximately 3 miles east of the closest fire hazard severity zone. And the initial study found that the project would not create or substantially increase impacts on emergency response or emergency evacuation plans. As part of the initial study, both the fire chief and police chief were provided input, and neither raised any concerns about the project. Next slide. The fifth point is that the current project as proposed at 6 feet and 76 stories and 72 feet is inconsistent with the character of the surrounding neighborhood. The appellant states that the proposal is a stark, imposing structure with a severe rectangular form and minimal architectural variation. As Amy mentioned, state law limits how these projects are reviewed. Pursuant to Senate Bill 330, the town cannot use any subjective criteria to evaluate a project. Only objective standards can be used to evaluate qualifying housing projects. And also, state density bonus law authorizes the taller building height. The sixth point of the appeal is that no local workforce groups were approached about the development despite the developer's statement that it will provide quality, affordable rental housing for workers. And the town's municipal code nor state law authorize such a requirement. None of the local public agencies have an agreement in place with the developer for units to be set aside. However, the draft town council resolution does include a condition of approval that requires an inclusive marketing strategy. The strategy is required to be reviewed by the community development director, and the strategy would be implemented during the pre-leasing phase and also during the initial leasing period as well. Next slide. The last 2 points. Point 7, the appellant states that they await the final CEQA study results as required by California state law. The final CEQA document was included in the record before the Planning Commission. The town prepared an initial study that analyzed the impacts of the project and prepared an addendum. This was considered by the Planning Commission prior to them taking action on the project. And there is no basis for requiring further CEQA documentation for the project. And lastly, point 8, the appellate states that they feel strongly that this is not the correct location for this building and that other larger sites should be considered. In response, the town does not have the authority to direct the applicants to a different site. So next slide. So staff recommends that the town council deny the appeal application and approve draft resolution 2025 upholding the Planning Commission's decision. The draft resolution is included as attachment 1 to your staff report. And Amy mentioned there's Fire chief is available for questions, as is a public works team and the CEQA consultants. And Amy and I are obviously available as well. Thank you.
And I just want to, because we're dealing with a mix of both local and state law, I want to give council and members of the public the background of what the legal standards are that we're talking about tonight. So we have to look at both our local law as well as the state law. And because of the way the state housing laws are written, state law preempts and otherwise overrides some of our local laws, and we have to comply. But tonight, the council can affirm, reverse, or modify the decision of the Planning Commission based on the grounds raised in the appeal. To do that, council has to find that the Planning Commission's decision was in error or constituted an abuse of discretion, or it was not supported by the record. But the council, when considering whether the Planning Commission's decision was erroneous, has to comply with the state law that governs the approval of housing developments. And under that law, in other words, the state has taken away the power of councils to use discretion in making this determination. So under state law, the council cannot deny approval of an affordable housing development or condition its approval in a way that renders the project infeasible unless the council makes written findings based on a preponderance of the evidence in the records that the housing development as proposed, quote, would have a specific adverse impact upon the public health or safety, and there is no feasible method to satisfactorily mitigate or avoid the specific adverse impact without rendering the development unaffordable to low and moderate income households or rendering low or moderate households. And the statute defines what a specific adverse impact is. And it means a significant, quantifiable, direct, and avoidable impact based on objective, identified, written public health or safety standards, policies, or conditions as they existed on the date the application was complete. In other words, the date it was filed and it had all of its boxes checked. So to make this finding, council there's 3 conditions that have to be met under state law. The town must have adopted an objective written public health or safety standard that was in effect at the date the application was submitted. Council also would have to find that violation of that written standard must have a significant, quantifiable, direct, and unavoidable impact. And third, there can be no feasible way to mitigate that impact except by denying the project or reducing the density. So it's the state has set for council a very high standard.
Thank you very much, Amy, for that. And Adam, do you have something to add?
I just wanted to add that in addition to the state sort of limiting the discretion of the council's decision-making, as you've heard about in the staff report and through Amy as well, it also places very strict regulations on the processing of applications. And so I just wanted to acknowledge the work. It's very challenging to be planners in this situation, and our planning staff, as well as our assistant town attorney, did a great job of getting this application to this point, obviously with a lot of information and really trying to be as transparent as possible. So with that, turn it back over to you.
Thank you. And I appreciate the brevity. I think you were both talking in fast motion, and I really appreciated the fact that we are being respectful of our audience and not wanting this to last all night long. So with that, we come to the council now just for any questions of staff, no opinions or considerations yet, but just if there are any questions of staff for clarification. Fred?
Yeah, can we
No, public will be later. Thank you very much.
have Chief Martin, maybe can you just talk about the fire side of this as far as response times, traffic, congestion. I know that there's 3 to an engine, including a paramedic, the medical response part of it, including our Ross Valley paramedic.
Yes, so thank you, Mayor Ravazio and members of the council. Ruben Martin, Fire Chief with the Central Marin Fire Department that provides fire protection services to the town of Corte Madera. The capabilities of your Central Marin Fire Department, we currently staff 3 fire stations with 3-person paramedic engine companies and a 2-person paramedic ambulance company that runs out of our Station 14 here. We are able to service our entire community within Corte Madera, Larkspur, and Green Bay with the resources that we have available, along with our automatic and mutual aid agreements with all of our surrounding and regional partners. When we start talking about response times to this exact location, through the data that was driven through our most recent standards of cover document that was performed by Citygate and Associates that basically looked at the entire capability of our organization, along with 3 years of response data from our dispatch center, and came up with an analysis of what is our response times to our entire jurisdiction? Are there any holes or gaps? With this particular site, we're on average anywhere between 4 to 6 minutes from all 4 of our stations and 3 of our engine companies, with the fastest response coming from our Green Bay Fire Station, which is located at 15 Berry Way or Bonner Center. And then from our Station 13, 14, and 15, you're looking somewhere between a 5 to 6 minute response time.
Thanks. And then as far as I know, it's come up about hooking, ladder trucks and stuff like that, which I know Central Marin doesn't have one. What would be the response if a ladder truck was required? Couple that with what would be the response from Central Marin Fire if there was a non-medical emergency, but a fire at that
Okay,
location?
so fire incidents, what we look at is, can we supply what we call weight and the speed of a response? How many firefighters is the weight? How many firefighters can we get there to effectively fight a fire? At a minimum, it's 16 firefighters. And then the speed of the response, how can we get there? Our goal is to get 16 firefighters on scene at the latest between 12 and 13 minutes. That's kind of what our, national standards are. For us, with an apartment complex incident fire, you're going to get 4 fire engines, 2 ladder trucks, and 2 chief officers to try to command that. So basically, you're looking at your entire Central Marin Fire Agency, along with our other pseudo department, which is Kentfield Fire Department, where we currently have a shared services agreement. So they're within our operational, what we call a battalion, which is within our zone. And so their ladder truck is on automatic response to all of our calls. So regardless of whether it's a house fire or a large commercial warehouse or an apartment complex like this, Kentfield Fire Department is going to be our ladder truck. And so the audience, so you can understand of the ladder response, and we're always worried, can we get a ladder truck either to the roof of a building or to try to rescue occupants out of a window? If you think about Marin County, there's only 4 ladder trucks throughout the entire county that are strategically located within 4 out of our 5 operating zones, which are Novato, which is our furthest north truck. We have one in San Rafael, which is located on Castro and the Canal, which is our next closest truck. And then you got Kentfield Fire, which is about 1.5 miles from this location. And then our final truck is coming out of Mill Valley or Tam Junction, which is our Southern Marin Fire truck. So those are the resources that we have available to us countywide on any incident.
Thanks. And then do you feel comfortable as fire chief? I can't remember if you're the fire marshal also.
Yes, I'm also the fire marshal.
Thank you. So do you feel comfortable that Central Marin can provide adequate service response times to that location, even during peak traffic times?
Yeah, we don't feel like we've got a concern to it because we've got several access points that we can go at it from depending on where our resources are coming from.
Okay, and then the egress and I can't say the in and out of that property, you feel comfortable with that? Because I know it's just the one interest, I think, on Tamil Vista and was extended to 24 feet or so from the 20.
Yeah, so
You
when
feel
you start
comfortable?
looking at driveways typical driveways in a municipal area, not to get into the public works side of the shop, but they're typically anywhere between 12 and 14 feet wide. We were able to work with the developer to try to maximize the width of that driveway so we can actually get a ladder truck in there, and so they can deploy their outriggers to stabilize the truck and to be able to get their ladder platform up. So that's why it's the much wider width on that driveway. So we were able to work with the developer and the applicant to provide that and to provide an appropriate turnaround for the fire truck. So once we get in, can we safely turn around and get back out without having to back all the way out to Tamil Vista? And I know there's been also concerns or comments regarding evacuations. I know that's a big hot topic for all of our communities. In a large scale evacuation, which we primarily look at is wildland fires, this location where it's been designated is not within an immediate evacuation zone that is a concern to the fire department. When we start looking at wildland evacuations, what we want to do is evacuate residents that are as close to the hazard as possible. So you're looking at the western side of our town or down at the slopes of Mount Tam. Those are our priorities to get out. If we were to have to evacuate the entire town, this location would probably be the last place that would be notified to get evacuated because it's the furthest away from any kind of danger. And they're the ones who have the easiest access for evacuations because of Highway 101 is right there.
Thanks. And just one last question for you. Do you have any concerns with this project from a fire standpoint? Again, service calls, anything?
No, we do not.
Okay, thanks.
Okay,
I have
Jim?
a couple more, I'm sorry.
Please.
For Amy, you mentioned builder's remedy before. Can you just briefly mention what happens if if something happens and we wind up coming under builder's remedy, and maybe you can give a couple examples around town, what would happen if, if we zoned a property and we think there's going to be 20 units, what would happen, or along those lines?
Yeah, under builder's remedy, it really is a part of state law that says if the jurisdiction is not complying with housing regulations, housing element, or something of that sort, builder's remedy is an option. And that basically means that someone could apply for a project on any site. They don't have to comply with any of our zoning regulations. And it could be any project at any height, any density. So for instance, at 41 Tamil Vista, you could do a 20-story apartment complex with 400 units or something. I'm just being, something outlandish. And so we've seen these types of projects popping up in Marin and other areas of the state, really in response to the last housing element cycle. And as jurisdictions were not completing their housing elements in time, though that builder's remedy took hold. And that is a potential if we were to be decertified. So the state actually monitors our consistency with the housing element law. And if we fall out of compliance, they can actually take our authority and decertify our housing element, which would leave us in that limbo, and we would have to allow a builder's remedy project. So it's a pretty awful implication. So we really want to make sure that we maintain our local control and our local zoning and general plan regulations.
Okay, thanks. And if they do decertify our housing element, are there any other ramifications through the state civil monetary penalties? Can they pull grant money for applying, anything like that?
Yeah, there would be an array of different impacts, but grant money is one. So most of our transportation funding, usually there's a question about our certification of the housing element. And if you don't have certification, you are not eligible. And there has been some grant money that has been removed from jurisdictions as a result. So that would definitely implicate our ability to build new infrastructure and our projects underway.
Okay, thanks.
Jim or Rosa?
One, and I don't know if it's a waiver or what, but
Jim, could you go a little closer to your microphone?
thank you. The step encroachment into is it the step back or the right of way? How much of that
So
is there?
So the step back requirement states that any story above the third floor, so in this case, it would apply to floors 4, 5, and 6, needs to be stepped back a minimum of 10 feet, and that's just on elevations that are face streets. And as proposed, there's not a step back. There's a 0-foot step back.
I thought there was some sort of waiver where this pedestrian steps for one of their entrances was encroaching. And I
Yes,
just
there's another waiver is required to allow ramps and stairs to encroach more than 3 feet into the setbacks. So the street side setback and the front setback is a minimum of 12 feet, and the building complies with that required setback. But then the stairs and ramps encroach into it. And our code allows for 3 feet encroachments, but this encroaches more.
How many more?
I would need to look at the plans.
What?
I don't know that off the top of my head.
Okay. Next question. With this planning, will it be in compliance with the, I think it's called Zone 0 that the state keeps threatening to send to us one of these years?
So Zone 0 would not apply to this project because it's not in a fire hazard severity zone.
Okay. And then the foundation, will it be piles or what?
So the developer did do some preliminary work. They have done a geotech report, and that'll be required to be submitted to the town as part of the building permit. My understanding is they're still finalizing the foundation design, but that'll be pilings they'll be using.
Okay. And then my last question is you call up the map where they, or the layout where they show the parking or the bicycle storage facilities.
Mhm.
And then you show the pedestrian entrances are sort of on the diagonal opposite sides of the building. So will pedestrians be able to get in and out where those bicycle?
So the bicycle parking storage room is on the first in the garage, essentially. So people will be able to, and there are elevators that people can use from their apartments and what have you. So I believe there will be entrance that people could use either from the garage or from one of the interior portions within that floor.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. There was a slide that showed some suggestions from a more recent, I believe it was a traffic study and one of the things was widening the driveway to 24 feet and widening sidewalks. And it sounds like the sidewalks are going to be widened on this project as it is. But also, how about the driveway to 24 feet? Has the developer said anything about being able to do that?
Yeah, so the slide showed the various recommendations by Hexagon Transportation Consultants. That was included as a condition of approval, and we've had conversations with the developer on these various improvements. They are confirming that they can comply with all of these, and if perchance they're not able to comply with all the recommendations, they would need to submit a waiver that would need to be reviewed by the Public Works Department.
Okay. Let's see. And I don't know if we have this information, but the amount of permeable surface that would exist after this development as opposed to how much exists now, do we have some sense of that?
It's considered a regulated project per the National Pollution Discharge Elimination System. And so they're required to treat stormwater on site. So those requirements don't apply or didn't apply when this original building was constructed. So there are a variety of drainage management areas on the site, and all stormwater will be conveyed to these areas before they go into the stormwater. So it actually will be improving stormwater on site compared to existing. And currently the site currently has an office building and a parking lot. There's very little landscaping in the current site.
Okay, thank you. That's all for now.
Okay, just one question for me at this point. Knowing this is a for-profit development and yet it's 100% affordable, looking at it long-term, and the rules say it has to be kept affordable for 55 years, getting into year 20, 25, when renovations are needed and when there aren't necessarily the same resources as there would be in a market rate building or project, what assurances does the town have that this won't take its normal destiny and fall into disrepair as happens often?
That's a good question, and I think that's something we have particular interest of all of our multifamily developments. We do have quite a few smaller apartment complexes in town, and we do have a robust code enforcement team, building department, and if any thing were to be considered dilapidated or unsafe, that is something that would require enforcement on behalf of the town. And I will say, even though there's a 55-year affordability covenant, we also look at the sunset of those contracts and try to keep those deed restrictions going. I will say our San Clemente Place project, which has been here a number of years, they are in the process of rehabilitating units. And as part of that, they will be doing a new affordability contract, renewing the full amount of time. So, and they are receiving grant funds to be able to rehab those structures. So I think because it's affordable housing, they are open to other funding sources than someone who is managing a market rate project. But it is definitely something that the town is vigilant on, and there's a lot of laws protecting tenants from substandard housing situations.
Yes.
So you're saying that those provisions to monitor it and make sure that it's up to code are already in place, and we wouldn't need to do anything in addition to assure that?
Correct.
Yes,
Thank
and Mayor, just to follow up on that, we do work with our county partners who are also charged with enforcing safe housing laws. And so we work as a team. We have a number of smaller buildings that have had complaints that we've worked with to maintain them appropriately for tenants. We have a lot of remedies under both state and local law. We can bring nuisance actions, code enforcement actions. So there are robust protections, and it doesn't matter whether it's an affordable housing project or not. People are entitled to fair housing. And I just wanted to follow up also because Councilmember Casissa was asking about some of the penalties involved. And, you know, along with the state taking away most of the council's discretion over these local projects, the state has instituted extreme penalties for not complying with the housing law. And so I think it's important for council to know, but as well as members of the public. If council were to grant the appeal, deny the project, it's likely there would be a lawsuit. There's a lot of people who can bring the lawsuit. The applicant can bring the lawsuit. Anyone who's eligible to live in the housing can bring a lawsuit. A housing organization can bring a lawsuit. The State Department of Housing and Community Development could join in the lawsuit. So could the Attorney General, or they could just decide to sue on their own. If court were to find that the denial was of the project was wrong, the town would be required to pay the attorney's fees of the successful party. I work for cheap. I'm a public servant, but these lawyers don't. In addition, there is a new law that just went into effect on January 1st of this year. And in addition to the lawsuits, there's now a new law that allows the Attorney General Housing Department of Housing Community Development, if they bring an action, the court can award civil penalties of at least 10,000 and no more than 50,000 each month until the violation is cured. They are also able to recover the costs of the state investigation and the prosecution. So please understand your counsel is trying to do the best it can under these very heavy-handed state laws.
Thank you, Amy. Okay, we will go on now to actually begin the official public hearing. And that means that we will first hear the presentation by the appellant. So those who are making the appeal, do you have a spokesperson present to come on up? And if there's two of you, that's fine. There's a chair right next to the podium if one of you want to sit while you await the other.
Greetings, Mayor Ravasio and members of the town council. Can you hear me okay?
You know, a little closer to the mic would be good.
Okay. I'm
You can, I
tall.
think you can lift it up.
And greeting to our concerned public servants and neighbors, many of whom could not be here tonight because of the Warriors game at this exact same time. Let's go Warriors. We live on Lucky Drive in the immediate vicinity of the Gem Corps project. I'm a volunteer physician for the Disaster Healthcare Volunteers of California. I was the school health and safety officer in charge of preparing the school for disaster. I'm a perioperative and critical care physician. My husband is an emergency physician, emergency department physician, and he actually started the paramedic program here in Marin and in most of Northern California with a lot of resistance. As emergency first responders, we're deeply concerned that the project will put public health and safety in jeopardy, and we urge you to reconsider the density. During the last meeting on April 22nd, the commissioners repeatedly expressed the sentiment that they had little or no discretion in helping to shape the Gem Corps development project at 240 Tamil Vista because of SB 330 and the state density bonus law. The Planning Commission felt helpless. We are here to empower you. The town has the power to deny concessions and waivers that place public health and safety in jeopardy. This is repeatedly stated in these laws. Therefore, we're appealing the Planning Commission's vote to approve the Gem Corps project on the grounds that the Planning Department improperly granted waivers that it believed were required. The density bonus law states that the city shall grant the concession or incentive requested by the applicant unless the city finds that the concession would have a specific adverse impact upon public health and safety. SB 330, the California Housing Accountability Act, and other California codes, excuse me, make these same exceptions. We believe the housing development project as it stands would have a specific adverse effect upon the public health and safety of our community. The current congestion at this unique but poorly studied intersection significantly threatens public health and safety, and increasing this traffic will make this threat worse and bring it to a tipping point. Emergency personnel will have more difficulty accessing the building and the surrounding neighborhoods. Evacuation routes for the building's occupants and nearby residents will be placed further in jeopardy. As written into the Town of Corte Madera General Plan, 1, new developments should be placed outside of high hazard areas, which it is, including high fire risk areas, special flood hazard areas. This is in a high flood hazard area, and areas at high risk for geological or soil instability. Under the town plan, evacuation routes must be evaluated for their capacity, safety, and viability under a range of emergency scenarios, including fire, earthquake, and flooding, among other disasters. Number 3, emergency personnel and first responders must have adequate access to the site. The town of Corte Madera and its multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan has identified flash flooding, localized stormwater flooding, and tidal flooding as hazards in this site. The U.S. Geological Survey estimates that a 72% chance of a significant earthquake will occur in this area in the next 20 years. So please see our full appeal letter for specific citations for this and the plan, the different codes and plans. By not pushing back on the waivers and incentives that have turned this building into 99 units, housing between 300 and 400 people, we've allowed a density to exist which threatens the public health and safety of this location and the entire surrounding area. Thank you.
Okay, let's give this a try. Can you hear me?
Very good. Welcome.
This is awkward. Okay, here we go. Good evening, Mayor and members of the Town Council. My name is Julie J., and I've lived on Lucky Drive for 10 years, right down the street from the proposed 240 Tamil Vista project. I'm here today to talk about concerns raised by our community. We are asking the town to accept our appeal and order the comprehensive traffic study that the Planning Commission asked for at the April 22nd meeting. Commissioner Kenny clearly conditioned his yes vote on a traffic study evaluating the project's impact on the surrounding streets. He asked for a comprehensive assessment that includes an animation of how the traffic flows in this area. Commissioner Chase directed the planning staff to have this done before the May 14th Town Council meeting. But the May 1st revised traffic report does not include a comprehensive assessment of this busy intersection. In the May 8th staff report, it was noted that a traffic study evaluating the project's impact on Pfeiffer and Tamil Vista had not been completed for the project because it could not be required under CEQA. But this is not correct. CEQA does base the traffic study primarily on vehicle miles traveled, but not exclusively. Thus, we believe the town of Corte Madera can legally ask for an additional traffic study evaluating congestion at this choke point intersection, which it is, a choke point. This truly does impact the health and safety of residents, which is a guideline of CEQA. Commissioner Chase made it clear that the town would pay for the study if the developer is not legally required to pay for it. We believe Commissioner Kenny's vote should therefore be reconsidered, and the Town Council should ensure that such a study is done prior to approving this project. We also have significant concerns about safety and infrastructure. The site is located near a narrow and heavily trafficked corridor. The added congestion, emergency access concerns, and strain on local services have not been adequately studied or addressed by the town. This isn't just about traffic, it's about safety. For pedestrians, bicyclists, school children, and first responders. This is precisely why you have heard so many residents worried about the size of this project. Commissioner Bendel commented that the town has not done its due diligence to research the safety and health issues that will occur, especially in the event of a natural disaster. We agree, and we also note that the building at this congested intersection leading to 101 on-ramp could prove to be a terrible disaster in the event of an earthquake, flood, or fire. We're not discounting that the building should be there. We're just saying we believe it should be less dense at this 5-point intersection. Secondly, we recognize the importance of complying with the state housing laws, including SB 330. We know this is very complicated, but we believe compliance can be achieved without sacrificing design standards. SB 330 does not strip the town of its responsibility to ensure safety, environmental quality, and objective design standards. Other towns, including Belvedere, have successfully pushed back and negotiated better designs under SB 330, and we believe we can too. Several members of the Planning Commission stated they felt the town had been bullied by GEMCOR development without any consideration of the town around it. And may I go off script here saying, GEMCOR development might not think they're bullying us, but everyone believes they are. Okay, just had to put that in there. As Commissioner Bosher pointed out, the architectural and environmental waivers and decisions the developer has required are entirely budget-driven. GEMCOR development could make some design concessions, and it would not make a difference in the grand scheme of the project's budget. For instance, the building is stark and it's institutional. Don't let GEMCOR development bully you. This building could be softened by incorporating step backs on the upper floors and adding small balconies to these units. The landscaping is small in scale. There's 24-inch box trees, which are for residential buildings. We think you should urge there to be 48-inch box trees, which are more compliant with commercial buildings. We understand the town has limited resources and is concerned about a lawsuit, but the community is behind you and ready to put time, energy, and resources into supporting you and any efforts to slow this down so answers to all these issues have been raised can be adequately addressed. In closing, I would just like to add that we are 100% for affordable housing. This is not a NIMBY appeal, but we can do better than this current proposal. Thank you all for your time and for listening to us.
Thank you.
Just a gentle reminder to the public that council rules do prohibit cheering and clapping. We do understand your sentiments, so I think you were heard.
You will have a time to speak to the council directly, each of you, if you'd like, shortly. But right now, we're going to hold council questions until we hear from the applicant. I'd like to call on David Blackwell, who will be presenting on behalf of the applicant tonight. And please, again, Corte Madera, let's show how civil and what great decorum we have in our public meetings. Welcome, Mr. Blackwell.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, and council members. My name is David Blackwell. Can you hear me okay if I lean down a little bit?
Yep,
Okay.
sounds great.
I'm a land use partner with the Allen Mackins firm in their San Francisco office, and I represented developers throughout the state and in GEMCOR with regard to several projects in the Bay Area. And I did submit a letter to you that's part of the packet on May 6th. And really what it does is it goes over the legal framework within which we're all supposed to operate. Because it is new to a lot of jurisdictions, or relatively new to a lot of jurisdictions. But I'm not going to go through all of those legal points again, because your staff adequately addressed those, as did your city attorney. I think hopefully you understand not only the framework, but really the repercussions for failing to comply with the framework. And you know, I think we should take a step back from it, because I was at the Planning Commission hearing, and there was a lot of frustration, understandably, and there was also some frustration from some planning commissioners. And I've been doing density bonus projects in the Bay Area for over 15 years. I've probably done 30 or 40 of them. And this is not new. This is not an unusual feeling to have. Especially when I was doing these 15 years ago, when cities didn't know really how this worked, because you're used to having discretion. You're used to being able to impose subjective standards. You're used to being able to tell a developer, you got to change this, you got to change this. And that's the way it's been for a really long time. But because of the housing crisis, because it's so hard to build here, and because we have such a deficit in housing in California, the state laws have been strengthened even since after I started doing this 15 years ago. And now, because of the crisis, which has gotten worse, is that the standard is very, very strict. And the city attorney and staff has already stated it, but the specific adverse impact standard is remarkably strict, and the preponderance of the evidence standard is remarkably high. That's never been attached to a city decision before. So it's really important to understand that that this is the new reality, and it's hard to accept sometimes. I understand that, but the bottom line is, if you don't approve this project, it's a state law violation. There's really no two ways about it. The laws are very clear, and that's just the way it works. It's really not my opinion. It's just the way the law reads, and that is the new standard now. And maybe, you know, the legislature, the pendulum swings back and forth, and maybe in Sacramento it's going to swing back at some point, but not now, not today, not for this project. The standard is very clear, and the legislature is very clear. And, you know, to supplement the city attorney's comments, and there were some questions at the planning commission level about this. There have been lawsuits. The AG does bring lawsuits against cities that don't comply, and then they become pariahs. I mean, Huntington Beach and La Cañada, there are lawsuits down there earlier than up here because their housing element cycle is earlier than ours. So, I mean, it's not a good position to be a city that decides, or a town that decides to just ignore the laws, even if some people implore you to do so. That's just not a good look. And it's also, it's you know, not really doing the statutory duty that's foisted upon you. So putting all the legal obligations aside, I mean, approving this project, which will provide homes to families, is simply the right thing to do. And we ask that you deny the appeal and affirm the Planning Commission's decision. I'm available for questions, and I can also do so in the 5-minute rebuttal period.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time. Okay, so first, I think we're set up so that we will have staff question the applicant, the appellant, and staff if they need to. But if I can, I'd like to start with questions for the appellant. Are there questions for the appellant? Commissioner Rosa? Fred? I think Jim said no.
I'll let you go first.
Seeing none, are there questions for the applicant?
One little question, and go ahead. Sure. I don't know if you are the person who can answer this, but when we're looking at households and the rent that is charged per household, say that it's 2 teachers as opposed to a married couple, how do they look at their incomes and determine the rent? How do they, you know, if one roommate makes 90,000 and the other roommate makes 50,000, how do they put that together for 140,000, or how do they figure out the rent?
Yes, so HCD publishes every year the income limits document, which sets forth not only the qualifying incomes that apply for each income level in each county, but they also that's also applicable to the rents as well. And they have the household size. I believe, council member, the household size is really it's household size. So if there are 2 persons, it's the combined income of those 2 persons.
Okay, regardless of the relationship.
Right. If they're in that household, if they are in that unit legally, then yes, it's combined.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Yeah, stay there. I just have a couple for you. Sorry. Based upon, I want to say, your experience, how many residents you think will be living there ultimately? Again, I know it's a plus or minus number. And then I know you're providing, I think, 160 some odd parking spaces. Do you think that parking lot, or all those parking spaces will be completely filled?
Yeah, I don't really know the answer to that as far as the residents. I mean, I think it might be addressed in the staff report where there's an assumption as to the number of residents, but the parking is yes, we believe that the provision of parking is really based upon what the market bears, and it is greater than what the density bonus law requires. by one stall. And I believe that the applicant has stated, and staff understands this as well, that, if there needs to be a little bit of fluctuation in the way the parking's laid out, if you need to get more gas spaces, for example, that can be worked through during the pre-construction phase.
All right, thanks.
That it?
I have just a couple of questions for you, if that's okay. So many of the projects you've worked on have been 100% affordable housing projects?
Yes, that's really all that GEMCOR does. And then I do a bunch of other density bonus projects that they just make the minimum number of affordability to qualify for the density bonus in the Housing Accountability Act.
I'm specifically interested in the ones that are 100% affordable. And I asked the question earlier of staff about long-term prospects for these developments. And without the market rate profit motivation, how do deferred maintenance, capital projects, and eventually, renovation of all the units in 20 years, how does that get funded?
Yeah, well, I don't want to make a distinction between market rate and affordable projects as far as the upkeep. I mean, that's particularly a project like this, which is funded by TCAC and LIHTC financing and has financial backing. They're very strict. We have to comply with their regulations as well. We have to keep these units and the projects in excellent shape. And we also, from a city perspective, one of our conditions of approval is we have to statutorily enter into a density bonus regulatory agreement, which means that it's recorded against the property for 55 years. And what that does, in addition to all of our state and federal obligations we have to keep things in good shape, is that under these agreements, typically the ones that I've worked with, is we do have very strict obligations to maintain the property and keep it in great shape, as well as, a lot of different things with regard to the tenancies and so on. So, and there's penalties that the cities will impose through those agreements if the developer fails to properly maintain the units. And so I think you've got various levels of oversight on these properties. They're not going to fall into disrepair. These 100% affordable projects are a really high standard to qualify to get this financing in the first place.
Okay. And then some of the minor questions that have been brought up about things like tree size, residential size versus commercial size, and all of that. If we give our approval to you tonight and deny the appellant, is there still going to be some consideration given to some of these basic requests, or is it kind of?
Well, I mean, the developer's always willing to work with staff post-approval as we satisfy the conditions of approval and as we work our way through the building permit and certificates of occupancy. I mean, there's always still a little bit of fluidity there. But we just have to understand that, beyond what the state allows, the town can't force the developer to do certain things. I mean, that has to be very clear. But, the developer already has, as Amy already pointed out, with regard to the hexagon, post-approval recommendations that we impose for ingress and egress and so on, the developers agree to do all of that. So, I mean, there is some flexibility. We want to make the project the best possible. So that is part of the process.
And normally in some of these cases, there would be developer fees to help realign the roadways to make them safer, to put a roundabout circle or something where it's needed. But those don't exist in this kind of case, right? So we don't.
No, I'm sorry. Sorry to interrupt. No, the project is subject to all applicable development impact fees. So we are paying a lot to do this. So it's just like any other project when it comes to conditions of approval or has to be, it's the nexus, and city attorney can get into that if she wants to. But no, we're not. We're just, the key is, and what is difficult for some people to understand is that the only standards that can be applied on a project are objective development standards. And on top of that, waivers can be used to not have those apply to your project as your project is proposed. That's the standard. So, I mean, what we have, 6 or 8 waiver requests that that are there. And I've had projects with a lot more than that, but that's it. I mean, other than that, we are complying with the objective development standards that the city otherwise would impose.
Okay. Thank you very much. Moving on, is there anyone with questions for either the applicant or the appellant? Or at this point, staff? Okay, then that being the case, we will open it up now to the public. And if I can, just to kind of manage the situation here, if I could see a show of hands for those who wish to address the microphone or address the council tonight. Okay, so seeing quite a few of you, we're going to go ahead and limit, if we can, the time to 2 minutes. Is there anyone who has a serious objection with that? Okay, so 2 minutes, yeah, if you go over a few seconds, I'm not, and especially once we get to the point where you're pretty much repeating what's been said ahead of you, we're very happy for you to get up and let us know that you agree, but you don't have to feel that you have to state everything into the record at that time. So if you are interested in making a statement, public statement at this time, please line up at the microphone. And our lovely Lorena, city clerk, town clerk, will be running the timer. And really appreciate your thoughts. Really glad that you're here. We do want to hear from you. And we'll go ahead and start whenever you're ready.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Linda Klein, and I live at 100 Lucky Drive, which is right across the street from this development.
Excuse me, I can barely hear you. Can we get more volume on the microphone? But the microphone, they shouldn't have to put their mouth around the microphone to be heard. Is there a way we can get a little more volume out of the speaker?
Can you hear me now? Is
That's
it better?
better.
Maybe the mic wasn't on. I live right across the street from this development. And the limited parking for the number of cars that probably will be in this development will cause the traffic that can't park because they can't find a spot will come directly to my residence, which is 100 Lucky Drive, and the first driveway as you come around onto Lucky. We understand that the housing development is working to address the identified housing crisis in California. SB 330 was drafted in such a way to protect the much needed housing that is now a crisis. But it protects the developers that need to address this housing problem and strangles the Planning Commission and the Town Council from really being able to do anything to object to these developments, because you will be monetarily punished if it turns out you say no and then you were to lose in court. However, even though there is some, pushback to this is a great idea to build more housing, but just not in my backyard, SB 330 does have within it, under Section 3E, language that does indicate that the town councils and the planning commissions are required to comply with traffic regulation. Basically, under Section 3E, it says nothing in this section shall be construed to relieve the local agencies from complying with traffic congestion control management required. It goes on to refer to statutes that say the removal of regulatory barriers to promote housing does not preclude a city from holding a public hearing nor finding that an individual project would adversely impact transportation patterns. So as you have heard tonight, we understand that you need to say yes, but you've also heard many requests for concessions that help us tolerate this project that is going to happen already at a congested intersection, and this is just the beginning. There are 4 more projects that you are going to put within a half a mile of this location. It will crush us if you don't help us with looking at the traffic and maybe making some changes that may fall to this town and not the developer, but we need help. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Next. And if
Mayor-
you can, you're not required to give us your name or your city, but we'd love to know who you are. So if you feel like introducing yourself, please do.
I'm a
Mayor
resident-
Ravazio, sorry to
residence-
interrupt. I just wanted to let everyone who's speaking know that the timer does show up there. I can't control how loud the sound is on my end, but it does make a beeping sound. It turns red as your time is running out. And then council does have that timer in front of their screens as well. So if your time comes up and you're still speaking, the mayor will let you know. But if you want to know how much time you have left, you can look on this screen.
Thank you very much.
How about if I just, when you hit your time, I will hold my hand up to let you know.
Thank
So you
you.
don't have to watch the screen. Okay.
Appreciate it. I'm a resident of Corte Madera, and I live on Lucky, very close to this project. I heard some things tonight that kind of speaks to what I'm actually going to be talking about, that this project is ill designed and is on a wrong location. At the previous meeting, all 5 design review panels had serious concerns. Not a single one approved the design. That's not a minor detail. That's a glaring red flag. Even worse, some panel members said they felt bullied and pressured into approving this solely out of the fear that denying it might lead to a lawsuit against Corte Madera. This is unacceptable. We cannot allow the future of our town to be shaped by threats and intimidations. We're here to say clearly deny this project, not out of fear, but out of principle, out of care for this community, and in alignment with the town's own review process. And if the Corte Madera is threatened with a lawsuit for doing the right thing, we, the people, are prepared to help. We will raise funds, we will organize, we will support legal costs, we will stand behind the town. This project, it should be either relocated or reduced density to 50 or so units. It is not even healthy for the people who live there to be there. There are no single 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom units for the senior citizens. One more, and the working couples that they don't have children. They are being forced into living in boxes, as heard, I'm sorry to use this word, only to show the quota is met. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hi there. My name's Joey Fisher, and I'm a program manager for Home Match Marin, Home Match is a local community service organization operating here in Marin County that helps to facilitate home sharing arrangements between community members. We generally support seniors in the community and older adults looking to rent a space in their home to find potential housemates. Our efforts help to serve those who are aging in our community to age in place and feel less isolated while they are aging, as well as to create more affordable housing options for those folks who do live in the community. I'm here tonight to voice support for the development of 240 Tamil Vista, as I believe it would no doubt create more affordable housing for seniors, families, and for the workforce of Corte Madera. Housing supply is an issue nationwide, and creating affordable housing options such as the ones included in the development of 240 Tamil Vista is an essential way to address this problem while investing in Corte Madera's future. The project targets extremely low-income individuals, not just those closest to the AMI. These units go up to 4 bedrooms, which is sufficient for a growing family, but are also located in good proximity to transit links like the ferry, train, and bike paths. Units like 98 affordable housing units in this proposal would help support those who live and raise families in Corte Madera and in the neighboring towns. As a part of my role at Home Match, I come across people of all ages and backgrounds who are struggling to find affordable housing. In this county, many folks, individuals and families alike, are priced out due to unattainable housing costs. with even cost of rooms increasing to averages of $1,200 or more. It puts our community members in positions where they have to decide whether to drive multiple hours or stop supporting the community. I have worked with teachers, service workers, first responders who all suffer due to the housing costs. When our first responders and teachers suffer, the entire community suffers. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Welcome.
Thank you. See, good evening. My name is Jack Noble, and I'm here to voice my support for 240 Tamil Vista. I also work at Home Match and at the Marin Environmental Housing Collaborative, and I was lucky enough to be born in this beautiful county. It seems that as time's gone on, my neighbors, my friends, and the people I encounter in Marin are increasingly fraught with concern about the future of this place. What it'll look like, what's being built and where, and what is to be done on the question of housing. I'd like to return to what housing, dedicated affordable housing, really means. It means that young families can start a life here, much as my parents did in the 1990s. It means that those families can send their kids to some of the best primary schools in the world, and it means that these schools remain as such, with a steady supply of brilliant and eager teachers and staff. It means that both those kids and their teachers and many others can coexist together in a dynamic, fruitful, and ever-unique place. There's a reason we love Marin so much, the nature, of course, but also the character of its residents. It is unfortunate that many seem to see Marin as a gated community. That is, in fact, no community at all. Marin is much more than a wealthy enclave. It is a home, a place of work, a place of love, and yet a place of great financial hardship for so many. 240 Tamil Vista, as proposed dedicated affordable housing, targeting the lower AMI brackets, would create opportunity, an opportunity for at least 99 families to live more easily, less in fear of uncertainty and less pressured by the debilitating costs of rent. These families, these people, are often already working in Marin, or they are our parents, our grandparents, or those of our friends, or those of our employers and staff. They are a part of Marin as much as anybody else. It is time we focus on the people. It is time we expand Marin's housing affordability and take action now. 240 Tamil Vista does just that, and I'm in full support.
Thank you very much. Boy, he hit that deadline just right.
Hi, I'm going to grab this because I'm tall.
Go right ahead.
My name's Erin, and I've been a resident of Corte Madera for 29 years. I've raised 2 children, and I'm super proud of Corte Madera. I've loved it all 29 years. One of the things I've loved about it, though, is the diversity and the economic diversity specifically. When my girls were growing up, I knew my teachers because they were my neighbors. I knew the people that worked at the grocery store because they were my neighbors. Those people are moving away, but they're still driving here. I have people who are hairdressers driving here from Oakland, Novato, everywhere. And that's what's adding to congestion. This building is located ideally for families. They can access all these great schools, Safeway, dentists, doctors, all sorts of things. And it's an ideal location for affordable housing. I also want to say that it's actually not true that you can't prioritize or make preferences for local residents and local workers. There are ways to do that. I just have to give full disclosure. I've had my whole career in affordable housing, so I know these things. And by the way, I also have no knowledge of GEMCorp or anybody associated with the project, and I have no desire to. But you can make preferences when you have marketing programs so that you can serve our local residents, our community, our neighbors with this housing. I also want to say it's disingenuous for GEMCorp to send only their attorney and not send GEMCorp staff. I think that's really not consistent with this statement that they've made on their website that says our focus on people, strong relationships, and a shared vision for collaboration has created numerous successful public-private partnerships. I don't think that's true unless you're going to show up at every single meeting and listen to the people that are your neighbors. Otherwise, I am in full support of this project. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Welcome, sir.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. My name is Chris Palomo, and I'm a field rep with the NorCal Carpenters Union at a local 35 representing Marin County. I'd like to first thank you guys for allowing me to speak tonight. I'm here to ask if the developer is going to commit to labor standards such as prevailing wages and healthcare for these workers, and if not, how come? Because the applicant has taken full advantage of SB 330 and the density bonus law, which streamlines approvals and maximizes profitability. SB 330 and the density bonus law exist to promote housing, not exploit workers. These policies provide massive benefits to developers, allowing them to build more units, reduce parking costs, override zoning laws, and secure quicker approvals. But when developers use these benefits without committing to responsible labor practices, the result is lower wages, poor working conditions, and a race to the bottom for the local workforce. Housing is more than just a roof over someone's head. It's an investment in our communities, and it should be built with the same care that we give to the people who are going to live there. When there are no labor standards on a project, the consequences of this go far beyond the job site. They not only affect the entire workforce, but the community as well. With no labor standards in place, developers and contractors will pay lower wages, provide no health care benefits, and fail to invest in proper training. This creates a cycle of underpaid, overworked employees with little opportunity to advance their skills and improve their quality of life. For the community, this means lower standards for safety and quality, as poorly trained workers are more likely to make mistakes that could compromise the integrity of the project. It also means fewer local dollars flowing back into our economy because workers who are underpaid and undervalued can't afford to support local businesses or invest in their own communities. This is why it's essential to have labor standards such as prevailing wage, requiring healthcare benefits, and apprenticeship programs. When we require prevailing wages, we ensure workers earn a fair paycheck and support their families. When we include healthcare benefits, we provide the security workers need to stay healthy and productive, which ultimately benefits the project itself. And we prioritize the state certified apprenticeship program. We're not just building housing, we're building a skilled workforce that can take on the challenges of tomorrow. These standards aren't just good for workers, they're good for the town of Corte Madera as well. When they ensure projects, these labor standards ensure projects are built to last, create pathways out of poverty, and keep money circulating locally. I urge you to require this developer to, have these development standards on this project, or if not, deny it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There's a familiar face.
Hey, tough act to follow. Got some good speakers tonight. My name is Dan Stanbrook. I am a Madera Gardens resident, business owner here. I have 2 kids at Hall, so I speak from a resident's perspective and a business owner that requires heavily on labor. I'll try to keep it quick because I'm having a hard time standing here. Everybody's made some great points. I really appreciate the pros and cons on both sides because it means everybody's involved and we're moving towards a good solution. We understand housing has not been taken care of for 30 years in Marin County. It's coming to a head now. Everybody keeps saying we have a crisis, but we haven't done a lot about it. There's only been 2 developments in Corte Madera in 20 years that I know of, Belmont Tam and the one down San Clemente. Clearly that's not enough. We're in a situation now that we can't hire people. We lose good staff. It's a recurring problem constantly. So it is hit ahead for our personal business. I am a resident. I'm not asking for anything for anybody else. My kids go to school here. My kids walk down the street here. So whether or not this project goes forward, I mean, I'm assuming it's going to. I understand the difficulties with it, but I would just hope that we all become a lot more, I don't know if I want to say progressive, but make this a much bigger priority for my future so that we don't get stuck in a situation sitting in a room arguing about details and we're actively looking to grow our housing proactively and not waiting for it to come and be, stuck down your throat if you don't agree with it. So I'm going to cut it there because I'm talking.
Thank you very much, Damon. Pig in a pickle, by the way, everybody.
Hi, sorry, I'm Mary
Just
Summer,
a
and
little,
I'm his
ad
ride
for the-
home. So I just wanted to state quickly that, he grew up here in Marin County. I did not. I grew up in a very lower income family. And I just want to point out that these are low income families. So the traffic situation, these families aren't going to have the 2.5 cars. They're going to have the one. And if they are families and they're attending, Hall and middle school, I mean, I don't, well, okay, that's not true, but they're not going to be driving over to Hall, and and Redwood High School. And, well, Hall, they wouldn't drive, but sorry. But my point is that the congestion in that area, I know because I do have the kids at that time, and that it's the school time. School time is hard. And those kids are so close that they're not going to be the parents aren't going to be driving them, and they're not going to have cars driving them because they're lower income families. So as far as the traffic goes, I just hope that people will understand that and kind of, really look towards that. And then also just knowing that like our staff need these apartments. They do. They need to be able to not, we lost staff members to Petaluma and Santa Rosa this week that we now have to replace and try to find them. And this is a very wealthy neighborhood, and we're not getting staff from the young people in this environment. So thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and members of the council, neighbors, and community members. My name is Rhonda Litt, and I serve in the capacity of Chief Executive Officer of Healthcare Services at San Quentin Rehabilitation Center. I also reside in Marin County, and I'm here on behalf of the institution and staff, current and future. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight on this important initiative. I'm here to express support for the proposed affordable housing development and for you to address however you deem appropriate and within the parameters of the law, the concerns that we're hearing tonight. Based upon the proposed criteria, at least 32% of my healthcare staff or the positions would qualify for this project. This development is not about lowering standards. It's about raising up those who have been priced out of the community they love and are those who would love to serve here and live here but can't afford it. It's about inclusion, equity, and shared opportunity. I'm confident we will do the right thing, and thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you very much for coming. Up next.
Hi, my name is Andy Rogers. I'm a resident of Corte Madera for 15 years. I'm also an architect. I very much agree with what the woman just said in front of me, so I don't have to repeat any of that. I do understand the concerns of the neighborhood for this project. I realize it's a significant change, but I also think that the best place to create high-density multifamily housing is along this Tamil Vista corridor. And there's always going to be an impact on any project that includes this many units. And I understand there's always going to be a traffic impact. Something that struck me earlier when I thought about this is contrasting the congestion that might occur. And I'm not even sure how much congestion there's going to be. It's not like this building had 0 residents to begin with. I went to a lot of town meetings there when it served as a town office. So it's kind of looking maybe at the delta between the number of workers that were there then versus the number of cars that are going to be in the development when it's occupied. I also think about the vehicle miles driven, because there's a trade-off if you zoom out in that people who are going to be living here could possibly be coming from places like Novato or Vallejo, where they can actually afford housing. And if they're living closer, then less miles driven does contribute in a positive way to health and safety, because not as many people are on the road for as long. The other thing that comes to mind is the project that happened at Bell Mount Tam some years ago, because there was an outrage in the community about that project, about the number of units, about the traffic impact. And when I look at it now, I think it's pretty well assimilated into the community. And a lot of those concerns really didn't come to fruition, as was evidenced by the post-occupancy studies. Project. Fairly support the architecture. I don't know the developer, but I think we desperately need more affordable housing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you kindly.
Good evening. My name is Allison Coleman, and I've been a proud Lucky Drive and Corte Madera resident since 2012. I just have one quick question and then a brief comment. I wanted to ask about the comment made at the start of the meeting that a person was absenting because of conflict of interest. And I just wanted to understand if their vote was part of the earlier discussions.
Amy, would you like to? Well, I can explain
Okay,
basically.
okay.
Eli Beckman is a council member who recently moved into the Bell Mount Tam development as a renter. But the state ruled that because he is within 500 feet of this project, he could be materially affected by it. So he was not, he was asked to recuse himself, and he agreed to do so.
Okay, so his vote was not in the 3-2 vote from the previous? Okay,
No, that
thank
was
you.
the planning commission that made that previous vote. This is the first time that
Perfect.
it's coming here to the council.
Thank you. So I just want to be clear. I've been a teacher in many years and coached to students of all ethnic backgrounds, and it's been the greatest joy in my life. So I am a firm supporter of affordable housing in Marin. I do want to point out that the congestion of this corner of this area is very real. My front door is under about 450 feet from this proposed 7-story housing project. Today, if any Lucky Drive resident wants to cross anywhere near Lucky Drive in Pfeiffer, I literally have to walk down 50 or 100 yards, cut through the office building because there's no safe way of basically crossing at that T intersection. And lastly, as mentioned by Julie and Ruth, we are appealing this decision until a comprehensive traffic study evaluating the project's impact on the immediate surrounding area is done. This necessary study must include animation of how the traffic flows in this area, because those of us who are literally right there see it at all hours of the day and night, and it is very real. And I feel that there would be a significant impact. And thank you for your time and attention.
And thank you for yours. Really appreciate it.
Hi, my name is Patricia Ye, and I live in Corte Madera since 2007. And I'm here to support our planning commissioners and our council members because I myself work on development business and constructions. And so I know how powerful the density bonus is because I use it all the time. However, every time I walk into a city hall, we are very humble. We listen to the cities. We listen to the planning commissioner's recommendation. We listen to the neighbors. We shape our design. And together, we come up with a solution. So this is the only meeting that I'm into. People talk about, if I don't do so, I will sue you. So I was really disappointed about the attitude of the developer, and especially they didn't show up today. And I personally really, thinks that we should challenge in the design because this is a very tall wall, street wall in the intersections, and it's so tall, it's going to be the tallest building in town. And we should really make it a really nice building to look at, and also really consider a great life quality for the people who's going to live in there. It's not a donut shape, it's a long corridor. So this is really not about a kind of lifestyle in Corte Madera, I think. And also, I'm very worried about the building type because during construction, you have to have a lot of street closure and for 24 months. And so we have, my kids go to Railroad High and I see the traffic all the time. I live on Lucky Drive. So I don't know, because how could you do lane closure in these intersections? And because the building was set up to be troublesome during the construction, and it's going to be super expensive. So I don't know how developer can actually achieve their low-income house in the rent. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Next.
Good evening. I'm Pat Langley from the Marin Organizing Committee, and you've heard express what I'm going to say, so I'll say it shortly. Essentially, we're talking about families and children having affordable housing in Marin. Right now, we have 125,000 jobs in Marin, and we have 40,000 people commuting in to fill those jobs. All sorts of jobs, teachers, healthcare workers. Just think of their families living that distance away. What difference it would make in the lives of these children to have their parents home and eliminating a 1 to 3 hour commute each way. So I encourage you to think of the families that will benefit from living in a place they can afford. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Hi, my name is Hi, my name is Colin. I've got allergies, sorry. I live in Corte Madera, lived on Chickasaw for 10, 15 years now. Nobody here speaking against affordable housing. Like that's the straw man. So everybody's in full favor of it as far as I can tell. My question slash concern is that there's a large series of these being planned in the area. I walk down there not infrequently. I walk to the ferry. It's a terrible walk. You're right on the highway. I would love to see a little bit of more proactive planning, urban planning in this area before we have a lot of these large developments come in with not really great shopping. Like you're going to cross over the highway to go to Trader Joe's. It's not super pleasant. So I don't know if there's anything being done to plan, to look at it. There's no question the traffic's gonna get a lot worse. You know, traffic coming off the highway right there and you cross over to go to the gym. It's not a lot of fun. I go to the ferry there. It's not a lot of fun, but you've got some, ad hoc retail. Joann's just closed. You've got Big Five, but it's not really conducive to building a community. And I'd love to see what we could do there.
Thank you for that comment. And I was watching Adam nod his head to all of that. So
Good evening. I'm Jenny Silva with the Marin Environmental Housing Collaborative, and MEC has endorsed this project, and I want to talk less about the specific reasons why we're supporting the project. Many people have addressed that, and talk a little bit about the process that got us here. There's been a fair amount of discussion of the consequences that Corte Madera faces if it does not approve this project. And those are from the state laws, which are largely implemented through the housing element process. This is a public process that the community helped create. And this is the sort of project that was envisioned by the housing element process. I've attended many meetings across Marin for housing projects. And whether a project is 5 units or 1,000 units, we always hear the same concerns. Everyone says they support affordable housing. Everybody supports affordable housing, but it's too big, too tall, too dense, too much traffic, not enough egress. We hear this with every single project. And communities across California have done this, and that's why no housing ever gets built. We are now at a place in Marin where housing is ridiculously expensive. There is nothing that anyone can afford to do if they make $65,000 or less, which is more than our median job. So we need this housing. Communities want local control. The housing element process is how we get there. You went through a 2-year process of getting community input on where housing belongs, and you did an excellent job. In our review, Corte Madera had one of the best housing elements because it did a good job of getting community input, and it was thoughtful in terms of where housing goes. And I see I don't have time to finish this, so I'll try to wrap it up. But the last thing I just want to point out is the people that need research around this room and see that people that give public comment are older, wider, richer, and more likely to be homeowners than the people in the community overall. So think of the community at whole, and please approve this project as your housing element designed. Thank you.
thank you so much. And I'm sorry to make you breathe so heavily there as you were trying to wrap up. I was thinking, God, I could just give her another minute. Go ahead.
Evening,
Thank you.
everybody. My name is Luke Barnesmore. I'm the Managing Director of Strategy for Front Porch Community Services. There were a couple of comments that my staff brought to me from the Planning Commission meeting, talking about affordable housing, devaluing the work of folks who have made a lot of money and can afford to buy a home here. A comment about overrunning the local schools with affordable housing. And I believe a comment tonight that associated affordable housing with ethnic children. And I just want to tell my story a little bit. My mom was a public school teacher at Hall Middle School, and I went to school here in Marin until kindergarten. After that, as a single mother, she was displaced into the deep East Bay. My father remained here in the county, and so I became a commuter kid. Went to 9 schools growing up, commuted back and forth between Oakley, California, and Marin County every single weekend. And so this is the kind of person who grows up in affordable housing. I now spend my life dedicated to making sure that older folks don't become unhoused. And so I hear that many folks here do support affordable housing, but I have also heard that there have been some comments that have come through this process that maybe indicate some different perspectives. So I would ask you all to talk to your neighbors and talk to them about who actually lives in affordable housing. The last thing that I'll just say is the rule of law is not bullying. And in a country that is going through the kind of crisis that it's going through right now, to talk about the notion that following state law is bullying, I think is something we might also want to consider. Thank you all very much for your time.
Thank you, sir. I hope. If there is anybody else, go ahead and line up now.
Okay, I've lived here since 1962. Okay, so I probably have lived here than most people. And I've seen a lot of changes in those years through Corte Madera. I love Corte Madera. I love where I live. However, and I do pass the EAH housing on San Clemente several times a day. Why can't we do that? Why do we have to have this monstrosity of a building that is ugly as sin, frankly? It looks like something San Quentin would put up. But why can't we do that 3-story EAH type housing? They do a beautiful job. They keep it neat. They keep it clean. I have only seen the cops there once or twice. It's excellent, and I would support that immediately. I'd be happy with that. Traffic-wise, it's not just the schools. The schools are minimal. You are bringing traffic in from the east across the San Rafael Bridge. If you live in here, you see the backup that goes all the way now past the Paradise Overpass. It's coming from the west, from San Anselmo, from all those places. It's not the schools. It's traffic coming from Novato, coming from Petaluma, coming from everywhere. So I think most people here do not object to low-income housing. It's the type of housing. It's what they're trying to jam down our throats. And I'm glad to hear that some people have done really a lot of research and found out some loopholes. Let's use them. I've been here a long time, and I'm best in Corte Madera. I've done a lot of volunteer work in Corte Madera. I'm now way up in my 80s. I don't want to do it anymore, but I do want to live out my life here. Thank you.
Thank you. And just for the record, was there anyone who got here before 1962? Okay, I think you're it. You won.
Hi, I'm Rhoda Becker, and this is going to be very short. I live on Lucky Drive. I've lived on Lucky Drive since 1968, and I am very much in favor of affordable housing, but at a much more reasonable scale. This is so out of keeping with what we have in our town. I think that you also need this, and this is really short, but you really should know that the Twin Cities Police Department has a record of at least 2 vehicle accidents on that corner, plus 1 hit and run just in the last 2 months. So those are some things about public safety that we really need to consider. We are not opposed to public housing. We're opposed to being in an unsafe situation. Thank you.
Is there anyone else? Oh, yes, welcome.
I'm not the last, so I don't feel the
Okay.
pressure of being the last. And I was going to try, hopefully I would have not had to get up and say this, but no one's mentioned this before. So good evening, Mayor, members of the council. My name is Justin Borntrager, live on Lucky Drive. I'm a YIMBY, not a NIMBY. I work in residential construction, but I want to make sure everyone knows the math. It's been pointed out a couple of times in prior meetings, but if you look at the housing element, you look at 5 of the 10 sites are essentially at 2 intersections, maybe 3. And you do the math on it, and all of them use the waivers that we haven't pushed back on and the density bonus. You're talking about like 3,200 people funneling into 3 intersections, which you can't. I mean, we can't use LOS. So and it doesn't meet the threshold for vehicle miles traveled. So there obviously there's not an impact on traffic. I mean, obviously, right? If that's the third of the population of Corte Madera right now, essentially on one street. So I implore, I think the ship has sailed on this, but I implore the town to do some kind of comprehensive analysis so that we're not sitting, Lucky Drive back up, the exit backs up 4 miles down the highway and you have people getting rear-ended and people can't merge onto the highway. And, my 96-year-old dad comes to visit and I said, Dad, you can't stay here because I don't think an ambulance can get to my house. It's please, please, please do us, the taxpayers, the service of looking at this problem, knowing there might be over 3,000 people living in one block. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments.
Hi, I'm Lucinda Smith. I've lived in Corte Madera almost since 1962, but not quite. Thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to speak. I would like to reinforce a lot of what has been said tonight and add my own comments to this really severe problem with traffic. The traffic study, as I understand from tonight, has not been completed satisfactorily, and I think that needs to be done. The other thing is there are all these sites that have just been mentioned before me that are potential building sites are going to bring in a lot more people. So it's not just what we're looking at tonight. It's what's looking at going forward to meet the 725 units for residential in this building cycle. So it's not just something that we are looking at isolated tonight. It's got to be looked at in terms of all of the other sites that have been incorporated around this grouping. I think that you've heard enough about the problems with traffic, but it's something that creates anxiety. It creates people doing stupid things. It creates the problem of road rage and people doing the things that cause the accidents that make it an unsafe area. It's not something we're just throwing out there as being an objection. It is serious. And the last thing I would like to ask, these developers that come through with these projects, and I'm all in favor of providing additional affordable housing, but the developer even tonight comes in with this bonus law of getting 99 units when the number would have been in the 55, which would have reduced the size of the building, would reduce the amount of the impact. And I strongly think that those kinds of things, I know we don't have a lot of control over this anymore, which is very frustrating for those of us that are concerned about our little town. But to have a huge building go in that is proposed is really a difficult situation to swallow. Thank you.
Okay, is there anybody else? And are we on Zoom? Are there
Yes.
people waiting on Zoom with their hands up?
We have 41 attendees, but we only have 2 hands raised.
Okay,
And I
so
do want to
notific-
announce
yeah.
that everyone who submitted an emailed public comment did receive a response from me. All of those comments are available on the website for the public to access as well. So I'll go ahead and unmute Paulus O'Hara's, and then we have Carmela Davis, and those are the only hands we have.
And if I could say to all of you on Zoom, if you're interested in making a comment, please raise your hand now so that we can know how many we have. Thanks very much.
Hello, my name is Paulus Oeras. I live in Tamo Vista Avenue. Thank you for opportunity to speak.
Excuse me, back in the room, we need more volume on the Zoom.
I'll try to speak up louder. Can you hear me?
Higher volume.
You're very low. We can't really hear you. If you could try speaking a little bit louder into the device that you're using, that would.
Okay, we'll try to do my best. So thank you for opportunity to speak. Once again, to reiterate, I do support affordable housing, but this project has really grown beyond what was originally promised and being pushed without the transparency and proper review. The original project, as a reminder, was 58 units or something with a commercial space. Now it's 72 foot tall 99 units, and the tallest building in the Corte Madera. This is not a small change, and the initial environmental analysis was done using the original project, and only addendum was added. While this substantial change and increase really, from my perspective, does require the full supplemental environmental impact report. Also, this should address the changes of almost double in the size from the traffic perspective. Secondly, there was absolutely no talking about the biological impact on the surrounding areas. There is a lot of wetlands, grass, and many birds migrating. 6 stories building, which was not in the initial analysis, have not been assessed properly, and this is under CEQA requirements to be addressed as well. When attending the April 2022 meeting, it was very clearly visible that the developer is using the waivers and concessions to state laws allowed, and using the loopholes to rejected any recommendations from the staff, really focusing on the project but not affordability. So once again, really, I want to reiterate, I support the affordable housing, but I want to make sure that as a city, we require supplemental environmental impact report for this significant increase in the scale, which hasn't been addressed to date. Thank you for the opportunity to talk.
Thank you very much for your comments. Next.
Hello, my name is Carmela Davis. I was born and raised in Mill Valley, and I currently work as the housing specialist for the Marin Environmental Housing Collaborative. We are a local nonprofit for the past 20 years that advocates for environmentally friendly and sustainable affordable housing. My comments tonight are on behalf of the organization. I urge you today to deny the appeal of this project. 240 Tamil Vista is a strong one that meets all of our project endorsement guidelines. It provides 100% affordable housing units, including homes at the extremely low and very low income levels. It will bring much needed affordable housing to the town, and it's in a great location. It also provides 3 and 4 bedroom units, which are much less prevalent in multifamily housing, which is a really great option for families. And it's close to transit. It's bikeable to the ferry and to the SMART train. It's in one of the most transit-friendly locations in Corte Madera. It's also walking distance to Redwood, easy biking to Hall Middle School and the elementary school, and walking distance to Trader Joe's. It's also possible to live car-free or to live as a one-car family. This will enhance the affordability of the project as families can opt out of or reduce that expense of having a car. We're pleased to see that the developer is maximizing the outdoor space in the development and that they have raised the base to account for potential flooding and impacts of sea level rise. As you've heard tonight, the housing crisis is worsening. This project is a great step in the right direction of addressing it. Families and workers in Marin deserve to live here, and this project will have a lasting positive impact on the community. So I urge you to deny this appeal and support the project. Thank you for your time.
Thanks very much.
And we just had one more hand go up.
Go ahead whenever you're ready.
Good evening, council members. My name is Matthew Hartzell. I live in the Twin Cities, and I urge you to deny this appeal and approve this project. This project is located in one of the most bikeable, bike-friendly locations in all of Marin County. I submitted a letter this morning that included a map of all of the existing and planned bikeways in the vicinity of this project, and it truly is a very bikeable location. So this should go a long way to assuage the fears of some community members who think that this project is going to increase traffic. In fact, it should go a long way towards alleviating traffic. I also want to speak to another source of alleviating traffic, and that is regional traffic. So many people who work in Marin County cannot afford to live here. They can only afford to live dozens of miles away, 50, 100 miles away in places like Antioch and Fairfield, and they have to drive all the way here to go to their jobs. So when you build that regional traffic is a great source of much of the traffic on our roads and highways. So when you build affordable housing like this near the jobs, you actually alleviate traffic because you shorten the distance that people have to make on their trips. So thank you for your consideration, and I urge you to approve the project. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. Always there with the bicycle perspective for us in these meetings. Okay, so I think that is everybody. Is there anyone else waiting online?
No additional hands raised and no additional emailed public comment.
Okay, gone on that. We'll bring it back to the council for comments. Wait, no, I've forgotten something. I'm getting the. Ahead.
5 minutes rebuttal.
Oh, the
First from
rebuttals.
the
Oh,
appellant
yes.
and then from the applicant.
So wait, the applicant gets to go last again? He went last the last time.
Well, the appellant has.
Okay, if that's the way it's planned out, would you like it reversed? Would you like to go last?
Yeah,
I'm going to give you the option. Would you like to go first or last with your 5-minute rebuttal?
Is there a law?
Is there any law that says who has to go first? Well, you could give up your rebuttal time if you like. But you'd still be available for questions afterwards. All right. Well, thank you very much. Well, go ahead. You have the floor. Yeah, back to the microphone if you could. Yeah. You make a fine duet, the two of you really do a good job.
You say first, because I don't remember what I was going to say.
I was just going to say that a lot of the discourse tonight is about what's inside the envelope of this housing development and what's around it. And so I think we need to talk together about finding common ground. I think I would like to see 1,000 housing units in Corte Madera. So don't stop at 800. We want low and mixed income housing here, but we have to be smart about the context of where we put it. And this particular intersection is very unique. It's the confluence of 5 different very busy streets. And it's not really a safe place to put such a dense building. If you limited the density, I think it would mitigate a lot of the danger. But look at these other sites that are so wonderful. Macy's, build a tall building there. There's a great cloverleaf for traffic. It doesn't have the same congestion during rush hour and school hours. Look, the movie theater site on Tama Vista is a great site for a larger development. There's no visibility issues on the road. There's no traffic congestion. I understand that the developer chose this location, but I think the town does have some say when we did the housing element as to which sites were going to be developed. And I just think this was a poor choice for a lot of different reasons. So that's why I think we want to encourage more housing, but have it at sensible sites. Do we get to say one more thing? Yeah. Okay. So, and I just want to answer a couple of things that were brought up. One is that the local housing workforce needs housing, and we support that completely. But there's nothing been set aside for the workers of this town. So I think it's really important to give the first right of refusal to our licensed vocational nurses, our public, employees, people who actually work right in this area, because what you don't want to have is people commuting from this area to somewhere else and increasing the traffic. So I think if the more we can place people close to their work, it would be great. And the housing codes really support that. And that's what a lot of the rhetoric, is about. So I think we should take action and not just talk about it. then I just want to answer that San Quentin issue, that's been brought up many times, that the prison at San Quentin has a lot of employees who are not able to live in this area and have to commute great lengths. And so this would be a perfect example of a situation where I think we can set aside some housing for our local workers. And then finally, the last thing that someone brought up. Oh, the traffic analysis. Just again, the VMT looks at the inside the envelope of this building, and the Corte Madera plan, which still relies on the level of service, looks at the surrounding area. And so I think this is at this particular intersection where there's so many roads coming together, the visibility is poor, there's no crosswalks. I think it's really important to try and minimize the damage at this site and encourage the growth at more sensible sites.
And your partner gets a final word or two.
Yes, you know, all I want to say is, somebody was saying, you know, you shouldn't be using the word bully. Bullying was used in the planning commission. They were saying they felt bullied. So it was not, I didn't start that. But I do think that, again, it is the density of this building, this prison looking structure, that is there anything we can do to soften it? Anything? And that I believe, you know, Commissioner Kenny asked for that traffic report. It was a provision of the vote, and I think it should be done. It should be done. It's a completely different traffic report. That's all I've got to say. Yeah, I think you need to look into the CEQA law. It's not, I think you guys, you need to look into this, because he asked for that. He asked for that traffic report, and that's the last thing I'm going to say.
Okay. Yeah, I think the band is playing you off.
Yep.
But thank you so much. I so appreciate the fact that you are concerned so much about your town, that you are here and that you've pursued this, and really appreciate it. And missing the Warriors game, that's a huge self-sacrifice. Okay, so we are finished with the rebuttals, and Amy is making comments to somebody. Could you?
Going to give a score update.
Oh, a score update.
It's not good.
Oh, see, you're not missing a thing.
98 to 112 with 3 minutes to go.
Oh, dear. Okay, so well, we should go at least 3 more minutes then, so we don't have to know the ending. So we do bring it back now to council. Am I correct? So who wants to go first?
There's final questions for council, if council have questions.
Yes.
If there are no additional questions, then you can close the public hearing.
Oh, okay. So I am going to close the public comment portion of the public hearing now on both in person and on Zoom. And the council will now have an opportunity to ask questions of anybody who's been involved, staff or the appellant or the applicant. And who wants to go first?
I have a question. Can you just clarify, because it came up a couple of times about the planning commission, how it was voted, traffic study. Can you just give us clarification on that?
So the Planning Commission, Commissioner Kenny, on his vote, did make a statement that he would like additional review of the traffic situation. And I think that's about all that he said. So it is written in the resolution, the Planning Commission resolution, so I can read it exactly if you would like.
If you don't mind, just again, I just want it out there for clarification.
Yep,
Thanks.
no problem.
Okay. Are there any other questions while you want to take a minute to look it up while we go on? Is there any questions for either the applicant or the appellant? Or comments, you know, if you don't have any questions at this point, go ahead and let us know what you're thinking.
We need to
close public
close
hearing
public hearing
before we
before
take comments and
comments.
deliberations.
So we're not going to close the public hearing yet because I have some questions still. So does anybody else have questions? And if not, I
So,
will ask my
I
question.
just had a question about what the appellant was suggesting about what legal rights we do or do not have. Those claims, is there anything to that?
I think at this point, you would have to make the standard of finding the health and safety effects.
Right.
And I can share with you that I'm aware of 3 Superior Court cases, 3 cases in which cities attempted to, they denied the project on those grounds. And in all 3 of the Superior Court cases, the court found against the cities. They, to my knowledge, I don't know if they're being appealed or if they're in the appeals. So it's Superior Court, it's not binding, but it is indicative of how those arguments are being received.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Oh, did you get the response to Fred's question?
Yes, this is from the minutes. So his recommendation was to revise the traffic assessment prepared for the project to also evaluate the impacts of vehicles in and out of the site and their impacts on Pfeiffer Avenue and Tamil Vista Boulevard before it is presented to town council.
And you've done that with the subsequent traffic study?
Yeah, so the traffic analysis that was prepared takes into account the level of service and congestion impacts as part of the housing element EIR. So that did do a comprehensive programmatic look at the whole corridor. And it also included traffic counts that really looked at the potential increase in level of service for this particular intersection. And because of this project being larger scale, more dense, we prepared an additional environmental analysis that looked at the delta of change between what was analyzed in the housing element EIR and what this project entails as far as the number of trips and the level of service and the vehicle miles traveled. So the areas where we went beyond what CEQA requires is we asked Hexagon, the subconsultant, to review the egress in and out of the site for safety. And those are the recommendations that are incorporated into the project. In addition, because we do acknowledge there is a lot of congestion at this particular intersection, the town hired parametrics to also review the existing situation and if there's anything that can be done on behalf of the town to alleviate the current situation. So this does represent the maximum that we can do to analyze the project in terms of what we can require the applicant to do. We are very limited because, as we've noted previously, this project does not meet the threshold to require a full traffic study. And the measure of review is now vehicle miles traveled, which really, in most situations, when you're reviewing a project under vehicle miles traveled, the mitigations tend to be more related to bike and pedestrian improvements, some kind of modification to the project as far as transit or some kind of traffic demand management system. But the laws have shifted in a way where we no longer can say you have to contribute to an intersection improvement because you increase congestion. That is where the difference has occurred. But this project, just even though it's affordable, the level of review is the same. If this project were a market rate or affordable, and it's the same level of review for another site, for instance, the Macy's site.
Okay. And that study in your mind, it satisfies what the commissioner was trying to get at and what he wanted?
It does. And this was in the record, but as you know, this is a very dense project with a lot of attachments. And so in our meeting tonight, we made a point to really pull out the information related to traffic and have a specific conversation about that. We did not during the planning commission meeting, so that is an error on our part to really not highlight the amount of analysis that was done.
All right, thanks.
Any other questions from council? I have a couple questions for the applicant, if I could. You don't have to come stand up, but maybe, yes, you do, because everybody else needs to hear you, right? I can. So I don't know if you're in touch with your principals tonight or not, but regardless, I just want to ask a couple of hypothetical questions, if I could.
Oh, boy. All right.
Oh, boy. Do you think that your developer would be willing to prioritize local residents in at least its advertising early on and giving local renters the first dibs on these properties once they become available? Because at the beginning is when they're going to be most desirable.
Yeah, I've had projects where we built that into the regulatory agreements because that was part of the developer's business plan. Here, however, because this project is governed by very strict requirements by TCAC and LITAC, my understanding is they're not allowed to provide any preferences to anybody. They've got to keep it completely open. And certainly, this is designed for workforce housing based on the number of bedrooms and the cost. So the idea is, that they are the perfect people to be, seeking, to go into that, to seek those units. So hopefully that's what we get, but we can't say you, but not you. That violates the rules.
Would it be all right for us to pursue that as part of our work, not with you, but through the organization that is saying we cannot do that? Because for all the environmental standards and everything that come about as a support for affordable housing, definitely renting these homes to people who are already in the area is the most environmentally sound thing to do. In my opinion, and in a lot of opinions that I've read. So we'll pursue that on our own, I guess. Okay, now the second point is, I thought we heard a very good argument about fair labor and labor practices. And I'm just wondering if you can illuminate us on your plans for that.
Right. So GEMCOR, they open their bids to all trades, union and non-union trades. And so they don't preclude union trades. It's an open bidding process. So unions, once this gets through the construction drawings and they really have a sense of the final form of the building, they then open it up they invite all bidders. And what I understand from the client is that on all their projects, it ends up being a large mix of union, non-union trades, but it is an open bidding process. It's not a project labor agreement process that they follow.
And would you say from what you've seen from this company in the past that their construction processes and management are pretty good? I mean, we hear nightmare stories about road closures for months and things. Are we looking at a reliable construction process
Yeah,
here?
we've worked with a number of jurisdictions, and there's never been issues with regard to the implementation of the construction management plans or any kind of the implementation of the project itself. They're very, again, I'm endorsing this, but they are very diligent about this. And again, they have a lot of people looking over their shoulder to make sure they're completing this in a safe and timely fashion, because that's what the financing is contingent upon. So they can't be like some developers who just let things slide. It's just not allowed.
Mhm. And in answering the question about density and how this is so many units for only a little over an acre and a half, I think that's the real concern, is that people feel it's not going to feel comfortable walking and being around there anymore. And I'm just wondering if you can tell us from previous projects, what's the experience there? I mean, is this the kind of thing where once it's in, people say, oh, it's not that bad? Or
Well,
a little, if there's specific examples you can give of something like this that.
Yeah, well, I don't think the crowd's going to listen to a lawyer's opinion on something like that. But I will say that, and one of the speakers said this very well, every project that we do that's basically over 10 units, there's a complaint about the density and the traffic. It's just a given. It always happens. And so there's always going to be a complaint. And then there've been studies, and I think the last one I saw was out of Boston, where they actually they did do polling of residents before and after, and everyone was up in arms. It's understandable. You see a lot of units, you think everything's going to be choked, but then they're interviewed 2 years later and they say, we hardly even know that project's there. I mean, it's again, these guys, I don't believe you're not going to believe me, but it is that there is a history behind that. And so, they're not going people will not necessarily be assuaged by what I'm going to say. And I totally get that. But again, there's always a concern when there's new density that's not what people are used to. It always happens.
And can you also attest that your client will be ready to work cooperatively with our excellent planners? We have some of the best planners and some of the smartest planning commissioners. And I'm hoping that your client will, if it does not get, if the appeal does not get approved, I have no idea how anybody's going to vote here tonight. But if it doesn't get approved, are they going to be cooperative working forward to make this the best looking, best project they can make it be?
Well, I'll say this sincerely. Your town has a very good staff. I've been in a lot of different jurisdictions with all kinds of staff. And some are very difficult to work with. This staff, they play it straight. They do it professionally. And we really like working with Corte Madera. And we have a good relationship with the town. I don't foresee any problems at all.
Well, that sure is very nice to hear. I want to give that up a little applause if I can, but I'm not allowed to yet, right? We're still in the public hearing. I'm sorry. I'm totally messing this up. I'm really new at this. I look like I've been doing it
Can
for a long
always
time.
clap for our planning
We
staff.
can always clap for our staff. Okay. And I appreciate you saying that and that you acknowledge that, because I think that does bode well going forward, provided that's where we end up. So I think we should close the public hearing now so we can say what we think and wrap this up. Okay, who wants to go first?
Okay, I'll rip off the Band-Aid. Yay. So.
That's why you're vice mayor and they pay you the big bucks.
Know how that goes. So, I'm just going to say at the top that I cannot make the safety findings that are being put forth because I serve on the fire authority board, and we had a meeting a few nights ago, and it was very clear when we asked directly the question to our chief, will there be a problem with fire in the event of emergency? And I was very much assured that that would not be a problem. So I think that finding I can't make. The other ones are subjective. And I'll talk a little bit about the matter of traffic. My mother used to have this great saying, when you were looking at something the wrong way, she'd say, "You're sweeping the floor with the wrong end of the broom." Every time there is an issue about development, traffic always comes up. So the question is, well, so what kind of problem are we talking about? Is it a people problem? Is it a structural problem? Is it a population problem? No, it's a traffic problem. And so that is what we need to address. And it sounds like there are things we can address as a town, crosswalks in the area, maybe looking at studies in the sense of how we can make that area safer, because there was mentioning these two or three crashes that happened. Well, those happened prior to this development. So obviously there are some things we can probably look at. So I think that I have to come down on the side of moving forward with this because, like I said, there's always been some reason to stop these developments, and this is how we've ended up where we are. by not supporting projects that might have been in the perfect spot. And this, I know it doesn't feel like it because you live near it. And I was on that road today at 3 o'clock going to an appointment and then trying to come back. And I know what it's like at that time. And, I used to have a second job where I would be coming from San Rafael and then coming back down that road, getting off at 4 there and trying to make it to my next job by 5. So I know what that's like. It is a mess at drive times. And I drove my kids to school, which is another thing we need to talk about, is that all of these kids having chauffeur service to school is crazy. Like, I didn't grow up with that. At 6 years old, I was walking to school on my own across the street with no crosswalk. So, yet I digress. But anyway, we have to do something. We have to do something about that. We should not have so many cars on the road. We should not be, individuals, one person, one kid being driven to school every day. So I support going forward with this. And one thing too that I want to point out is that we are doing this for our tomorrow. And the young men who spoke here tonight in support of the project, they're the people that I think we have to do this for. Because, we older people, we got all the goodies. We did. We got the housing that we could afford. We got the, just a lot of advantages. And I think we owe the future something. And so I have to say that I am denying the appeal.
Thank you. I love that the Marin equivalent of walking 5 miles in the snow is no crosswalks. I had to cross the road with no crosswalks. Thank you very much. Who's next? Jim?
One objection an objection I have to the project as proposed and presented is basically the town spent a lot of time and energy coming up with a housing element, which we went back and forth on and agreed to, and then all the details immediately get waived and concessioned, okay? We were talking 50 feet high. Now we're talking 72 feet, okay? Next one that comes along is gonna want 80. And yes, we are being coerced. You sit there and, she'll tell me about all the lawsuits that we'll face if we don't approve this damn thing. When it's done, it'll probably be nice. And those roads will be gridlocked, just as they are every day, from 3 to 4 o'clock. So, yeah, I'm gonna not uphold the appeal, but I also think the town manager had better figure out how to straighten out the traffic in that area, even if you have to work with Larkspur, because it's been a mess for years and years. And you decided that you wanted to put all the new housing in that area. So, you need to figure out how to straighten out the traffic there, because right now it's not tenable.
Thank you, Jim. Fred?
Yeah, a couple comments. First of all, I want to thank everybody that came tonight. Staff I think, did a great job in representing the developer and the other side trying to get it denied. I appreciate it. I know there was a couple moments where you two were actually like talking to each other and joking around. Yeah, I think that's a great sign, because it's not like an adversarial type thing. So I think we're all coming from the same place to a certain degree. So I really appreciate that. I don't feel like I'm being bullied by the developer or by the state. I've dealt with developers out of San Francisco. It's all about land use, how you can maximize it. From the state of California, I don't feel like I'm being bullied. Basically, the state has passed laws. And the way I look at it is we have to adhere to those laws, whether we like it or not. And some of those, again, we may not like bonus density. We may not like that developer gets waivers, but that's the way the law is written, and that's what we have to adhere to. Based upon that, from my perspective, I don't think we're able to meet the standards beyond a preponderance of evidence to uphold the appeal to deny. So again, I could support moving forward with the project. A couple other things along those lines also is that I think when we boil it down to it, we may not like traffic. We may not like the way the building looks. There's a lot of things we may or may not like. But what I've heard across common grounds is that we're all for affordable housing. This project, one thing I like about it is it went from, I think, senior affordable, 240 units, to 99 units of family affordable. If you think about by putting families there, it's serving a multitude of levels. It's serving families, which means you could have multi-generational families. So you could have grandparents that are living with parents that are living with kids. You have kids in there that are going to be able to attend really good schools, between Redwood, Hall, and even Cove. It provides workforce housing, people that would live and work in our community. And I think certain laws, fair housing laws, you're probably prohibited from giving preference to teachers or to those working in Corte Madera, but it doesn't prohibit teachers, first responders, or staff from applying for those housing units. I was also a little bit worried because I note there's that development will not pay property tax because it's a nonprofit. Again, that's coming down from the state. But the flip side to that is everybody living there is going to have to shop somewhere. So they're going to be fueling, I want to say, the local economy. Sorry, a couple other comments. I do have a higher confidence level with Chief Martin's comments. I was worried about the response time there, both medical and just from a fire standpoint. Most of it's medical. I think he's kind of like, give me a comfort level that Central Marin Fire can handle that. I know Central Marin Police isn't represented here tonight. I sit on Central Marin Police Council. I've had conversations with their command staff. And again, there's a comfort level for service calls. They can handle it, and it would be a reasonable response time. Just a couple of things to mention. I totally hear you about the traffic. I think on the traffic side, I think Corte Madera, I think we need to partner and collaborate with Larkspur because we could fix that intersection. But again, I've seen it backed up down Doherty to the front parking lot of Redwood. So I don't think it's just a Corte Madera thing. I think it's a Larkspur thing. I think also we probably need to look at Caltrans. I think it's more of a global issue than just being one where it sits with Corte Madera. So I would, again, encourage staff to look at that more on a global level and partner with Caltrans and also with Larkspur. The other thing is also I sit on Marin Transit Board, and I've had conversation with Nancy Whalen, who's their general manager. When we get close to that project coming online, Marin Transit is more than willing to look at bus scheduling, routes and that kind of stuff to try to assist with public transportation. And Marin Transit does a great job throughout the county. And just one last thing, if possible, we did this with the Casa Buena project, which it was a project home key, was a little bit different. We created a task force, it was a little bit different. But I think as we get closer to this project becoming more reality, if there's some way that we could either create a mini task force and partner with the developer to include the local residents there, either, some on staff or one of us on the council. I just think what we need to do is figure out how we integrate that project. It's not just a project, integrate the people into our community. And I think that's all encompassing. It's not just a matter of the developer building or staff listening. Again, I think it's larger than that. So again, we did that with Project Home Key, and I can give you more information how we did that project, but it worked out really well. So again, those are my comments. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Fred. Yeah, you reminded me of what was said earlier about the public-private partnership and how the reality of that could really make something special. Okay, I really do try not to ramble on, but I'm going to ramble on just a little bit. Wait, we have to make a motion to extend for a half an hour. It's 9:30. It's a rule we have so that we don't become Fairfax.
I'd like to make a motion to extend our meeting for another 30 minutes, half an hour.
Second.
Councilmember Andrews. Councilmember Casissa.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Thomas.
Yes.
Mayor Ravazio.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries.
Okay, so I usually try not to ramble, but I wrote this out and I really do want to say some things here. My gut and in my heart, I really want to support this appeal. I oppose the coercive state laws, even if justifiable due to a crisis that erodes local control, because it treats Corte Madera exactly as if we were a resistant town not in compliance, when in fact we are the reverse. We heard a lot tonight about NIMBYism and how everybody wants to come in and say, not in my backyard. But they say, oh, I really support affordable housing, just don't put it next to me. But this is a little bit different than that. What I'm hearing from our community is that we do support affordable housing. We just want it done right. And what does that mean? It's just quality design with an eye on integration with the existing community there. Our general plans calls for us to maintain our small town quality of life. And even the Tam Ridge development has little stoops and front porches on Tamil Vista. And they tried. We asked them for all of that, and they did try to create a kind of pedestrian-friendly, human-scale type of housing development. And I think even 6 stories can still look and feel at human scale, especially on the lower levels where you're really meeting the street there. And what's happening at that street meeting right now, it feels like a corporate headquarters to me. And maybe there's something I'm missing in the plans, but oh, anyway, back to what I wrote. We're looking for a reasonable scale and a residential feel for our residential projects. As far as the design goes, the fact that there's not a single balcony or a porch or any access to outside space or air from any of the 99 units, except, you know, that little opening that you get at a Marriott? You know, you get those 4 inches of screen. That's what's planned right now. And I don't know. I wouldn't pay taxpayer dollars to give them better windows, but I do think it's something that could be looked at. So overall, it's not great design. There's some real innovation. I love the open courtyard in the middle and the way that it's a true gathering place for the people who live there. I think there really is some nice, innovative community thinking behind this project. But the lack of willingness to really listen to some of the best planners in the county, right here in Corte Madera, our planning commission is excellent. Our chairman, Peter Chase, is an excellent builder, designer, and really made some simple requests that were not honored, which was just to make even a few of the units smaller, which would help serve our most needy rental population, which is young people returning home from college, workers, local workers, and elderly seniors. So they're all looking for smaller units, and I know it's important to bring in the families, and I love that this project brings in the families. But I don't like the way the developer just knew that because they had the law behind them and had the opportunity to sue us if we said no, that they just decided to disregard way more than they would have had they been a regular developer of a mixed affordable project. But what I want to say is Corte Madera's council staff, and I would say well more than half of our residents, maybe even 75%, do support development of affordable housing, and even 700 to 800 of them in overall in the next years. And one thing the community should know is if we build 800 units or the 700 and whatever they've asked for, we are then allowed to turn down housing projects if we'd like to. Is that not correct, Amy? It was written in something I received.
Um,
Not to put you on the spot.
not exactly. No, I mean, it's nuanced and complicated.
Okay, so, but I want you to know all of the ways, and this is mainly for the applicant, that Corte Madera really stands out in this regard. In our RENA housing requirements from the state, our submission was improved on the first go-round. And we actually made way for more than 100 units over than what the state asked for. We've been we're ready to help make this challenge happen. The town council has also voted to create 2 additional priority development sites, right? 2, the Macy's, Adam, and another site. So we're providing resources to help developers come up with their plans. We really are in our actions supporting affordable housing. And if you don't like that, we need to hear from you because that's really where the council has been here on affordable housing. Yet, these recently passed state laws allow developers to come in and treat Corte Madera as if we were, Hermosa Beach or somewhere that was saying, we're not building anything. We're trying here. And I think that, speaking on behalf of all those who said they felt bullied, I just think that the developer could have maybe made a few more friends with honey rather than vinegar. Moving forward here, though, I do think the developer will, moving forward, have a great relationship with our staff, only because our staff is so excellent. They don't get nearly as emotional as the mayor does. And I do know that already there is work being done on the traffic issue. Mayor Catherine Way from Larkspur, who was here earlier tonight, kind of coaching me a little bit just on running a meeting, is already looking at improving the traffic area right outside of Redwood High School, which is actually in Larkspur. The city line is right there. And so I do think, and I'm sure, put my glasses on so I can see if he's nodding his head, but the staff would automatically be looking at how to make this traffic work as well as it can. And maybe even bringing in Marin Transit or Transportation Authority of Marin or whatever to help us there. Right, Adam? I mean, that's something that would naturally be happening, right?
Yes, and there's a lot of also emphasis on the non-vehicular network, bicycle network, which you'll see a project we talked about the capital budget for 2026 on Lucky Drive specifically.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, and just a couple more points here. Thank you. I just gave you the microphone so I could get my final point together here. I do make the findings, as Rosa did, that there's no immediate safety threat to the community from this development, other than not liking what we see when we drive by it. But I just think that that's not enough. And the traffic issues are for real, but I do think the town will address those. And I encourage all of you who have knowledge and expertise in this area, come forward, email Adam, offer your help, because our staff is very open to input and support from the community. And so stay involved and help make this the best development it can be, because who was it who said, Matthew Hartzell, and the other man who came in and talked about the bicycle paths and how it's such a natural, wonderful, accessible area to get to the ferry building, to get to the malls, to get to the schools. It's really a nice central location that I think the people who live there will love living there, other than the windows, of course, if they can't really open. So my findings are also that the appeal has not met the criteria necessary to even give us a chance in court if we get sued. And also, just a note, our schools right now, I checked with our superintendent on this, our schools are underpopulated. We need more kids here. Birth rates are down. So that's why I think our staff instinctively loved this, because they knew it was a place where a lot of kids could live. And I think that's a wonderful thing in our community, because that's why people really want to move here, because it's such a great place to raise your children. So the only other thing I want to say is, for those of you who agree with me that the state laws are really coercive here, I've already started speaking to Damon Connolly, our state assembly, and he has offered to work with us to take this sort of chainsaw of a suite, a cornucopia of state laws and smooth off the rough edges and create a nice hedge trimmer. I don't know, something to modify and moving forward, especially towns like Corte Madera, to me, that have demonstrated such willingness. I think we should be entitled to a little bit better treatment somehow. But here's what I got from Damon's office. On our end, I can tell you.
Mayor,
that-
we
sorry.
really do need to stick to the topic of the appeal.
This is about the appeal. Oh, okay. I'm not allowed to pitch you on joining my pursuit of new state laws. But if you should be interested, you know how to reach me. Okay, so with that, I will close off our conversation and ask if we have a motion.
I'll make the motion to deny the appeal and uphold the planning commission's action by approving resolution 20/2025.
Second.
May we take the roll?
Councilmember Andrews. Councilmember Casissa.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Thomas.
Yes.
Mayor Ravazio.
Yes, and I do apologize for going off script a bit, but if I didn't go off script, it wouldn't be my meeting. Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you all for being here.